hi. You are
Yes.
a lot of things. You are a texture artist
Yeah.
by trade, a
That's
soldier,
how I started.
and a
Yeah, yeah.
sailor. Also,
No, I'm not a sailor though, but I do work at the Navy.
Mhm.
So if we roll all the way back to how I kind of got into making textures and materials, um, I think I was around 13 when Nintendo 64 became a thing.
Mhm.
And I saw it in the store once, so Mario 64, and I was like, "What's going on?" Like it looked 3D, right? So you had things looking like the actual stuff. You had like a pile of gravel, and you can see the stones and things like that. So that kind of immediately caught my attention. Um, so I went out for like a summer job in school vacation where we call it piepers rooien, where you basically grab potatoes from the dirt and just put them in boxes, and that was your job, right? You get paid by the crate, and there was tons of crate inflation where people counted more crates than there were, so the price per crate was going down, so you'd have to work even more. So there was no smart assing around doing the actual labor. Um, and then I got my Nintendo 64, and then at some point, Turok came around, GoldenEye, Perfect Dark, and the games kept looking prettier. And I was kind of drawn towards the first person perspective because you get really close to everything. And at some point, as time went on, when I was in college, Halo got released, and my friends were kind of nitpicking on me or picking on me for using the sniper rifle to only like zoom in on the grass, zoom in on the rocks, zoom in on the tree bark, look at the god rays, stuff like that. So I really had that graphics bug installed pretty much, and then where kind of things really came together right before they started clicking, like I want to do something with this. I went to Iraq when I was in the army, and
we can
there they
we can do like a whole tangent on just
are.
that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Just
yeah. More than happy to. Like we
go
have the
ahead.
time.
Yeah.
So in Iraq, I was able to visit places that I would normally never would, like Uruk or Ur. Not sure what the pronunciation is, but these old Babylonian ruins where they
Hmm.
have this massive, kind of like a stepped pyramid with the top chopped off. Supposedly there was a temple on top. So I really took in the environment and thought like, man, like how can you convey how the experience is, right? Like how this looks, how this feels, the sense of space you have when you stand on top of that thing. You could see the airbase, you could see villages nearby, you could see some palm trees and stuff. And so I started taking tons of pictures, and this was when like there were smartphones with camera capability, but those pictures didn't hold up. But I had this tiny, like I think it was JVC or Sony Handycam that you had these tiny DVDs in there or CDs. I'm not sure if I remember. I think DVDs, and it could take pictures as well. So the idea was if I take tons of pictures of how stuff looks here, then I might be able to do in like a mod or some 3D modeling program that I had yet to learn. Maybe recreate that sense of scale, right? So like, hey, here I was, and this is how big it was, and these are the distances. Um, so once I left the army and had more time on my hands, first I was unemployed for a bit.
So this was
I,
over three
to,
years that you were in the service.
around 3.5 years, just a bit under, and I was stationed in Germany in Seedorf, which is like this old Dutch army base from the Cold War. And from there, we deployed to Iraq. And at first, we were going to go, I think, 4 months, but it ended up to being closer to 6 months, just under, if I remember correctly. This was in, I think, 2005. And oh yeah, so their Halo 2 came out one day before global release. Like Bungie supported the troops back then, and later on they still did. I have some experience with that, which we can dive in later as well. Um, So I saw Halo 2 there on the like there was this place called the Hotspot. It was basically like chained tents, so combined tents to make a building that had a like a video rental place. Well, you wouldn't actually rent them. You would just, sign for them, and you get these VHS tapes, so you could watch Lord of the Rings and stuff like that in your downtime. And I saw some guys playing Halo there, and like it blew my socks off. I was like, man, this is going to be so cool when I get back. And many LAN parties ensued, but that coinciding, like that awe and amazement from seeing video games, as well as like in this stark contrast of the harsh reality outside of Tent City,
Mhm.
um, and having that experience of that sense of scale, that sense of significance, but not knowing why it was significant. Like, you stand on this massive ruin, basically, where all those clay bricks, they all were inscribed. I have so many pictures of those bricks, like brick walls, with I'm not sure if it's Sanskrit or some cuneiform writing, I think.
Right. It would be
Um,
cuneiform most likely in that area, but I
yeah,
couldn't tell you. Um,
yeah, yeah. I think you're right. And it was just this very, I'd say that entire period gave me so many strong impressions that would kind of shape me in part for the future as well. So when I came back around 2008, I think the dollar crashed hard, and I was able to purchase texture creation software called Genetica.
so this
The
is
com-
around the time that we had basically a housing crisis in America, and our economy was in collapse because of mortgage rates and interest rates.
yeah,
So
yeah, the
that
bubble,
would be
right?
why the dollar collapsed, if I understand. I mean, I was very young in 2008,
Hmm.
so
Yeah,
you're
all I knew that,
ancient.
yeah, like I am, yeah, turning 41. But yeah, I do remember the dollar was relatively low compared to euros. So suddenly your euro was worth more
Mhm.
than $1. And I think they used to have parity a while before that or close to it. So it became attractive for me to actually buy a legal version of something I downloaded a correct version to try out for a few months. Um, the software is no longer supported, but you could probably still download it somewhere. It's called Genetica, and it was really ahead of its time. You could do like all procedural, so you could do procedural texturing. You could make environment maps like cube maps and stuff for reflections. You could do animations like animated normal maps, and you can still see them around nowadays for some games, which is pretty cool. And then I tried drawing, but I could only draw stickman, right? So for some reason, nodes really clicked with me. Maybe it's because as a kid I played with Legos a lot, or with Kinects. You know those Kinects, like those rods and things you can connect to make.
The little magnet, they're like Lincoln Logs with magnets and plastic instead of wood.
Yeah, but there weren't magnets involved though. But you could have
Hmm.
like Kinects. It's K apostrophe Nex.
It's like, so they're like pieces of plastic with like the joints or these sort of wheels with like a socket that
Yeah, yeah.
plastic
You have
piece
different
fits in.
shapes and colors.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
it's almost like a different version of Lego, but with more uh
yeah. Somewhat like Lego
lengthy
Technic.
pieces. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And so for me, like building stuff out of individual smaller pieces kind of felt natural. So nodes kind of clicked early on for me. Um, and then I kind of rolled into the indie games industry after someone asked me for a texture, like he wanted to use a specific texture. And I was super eager, to kind of get my first experience in the games industry. So I was like, I'll make all the textures for your game. Just put me in the credits, right? Super naive, super early on, but super eager to learn and hoping, to get that experience, to get that mileage, do the grinding, to grow basically. And yeah, those were my baby steps. I can go on up to the present, or we can
Well,
dive into a tangent.
we have lots of time for tangents and
Hmm.
everything. Like the whole format of this whole. By the way, this is going to be the very first episode of the new show, which I
Oh,
haven't even named yet. So by the time someone
nice.
hears this, it will have a name.
I'm
But
on, I'm honored.
I've committed to, like, I'm going to record like 10 or 12 episodes, and then I'm just going to like edit it all, and then I feel like the name will just come to me
Yeah,
through
yeah, yeah.
conversation. Like
The
it'll be like,
muse.
yeah, yeah, like so you'll say something. I really do believe in the whole concept of the muse, by the way. I don't
Yeah,
know.
same here.
We met
I don't
George
know how to.
at some point at 3D Realms, the head of marketing.
Yeah, briefly.
Yeah, so he's Greek, but, like, he he literally, like, he was a lieutenant in the Greek army for a long time and everything, like, we're great friends, but,
Awesome.
like, his whole philosophy on life every Greek man's philosophy on life is, like, "Everything is Greek. All of the best ideas ever have come from Greece." I'm like, "True. Yeah, that's true." But, yeah, the whole concept of the muse, like,
Oh, yeah.
it will just come to you if you just stay open-minded and you're, like, listening, you're, like, keeping your eyes open, keeping your ears open. Ideas
Yeah.
that you need will just appear. Uh, I feel like
The
that
Muse,
only comes with
I
age and wisdom, though.
true, but also the Muse likes to watch people shower, I think, because you
That's
get the
fine.
best ideas in the shower.
That's fine. She can sit on the toilet, whatever she needs to do. As long as she keeps bringing me the goods, like, I need
Yeah,
those good
yeah,
ideas. Uh,
yeah.
but yeah, so to back up a little bit, like, we'll get into your, like, I really wanna do, like, cover the whole military career and everything that stemmed from that because it's, like, one of the most
Sure.
interesting things, but for now, I wanna focus a little bit on, like, the conversation that you and I had the first day we met. So,
It's been a
uh,
while, so you might have to freshen me up, but it did make, like, that's kind of how we turned into, brothers from another mother.
dude, it was like love at first sight. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
you, and the guys from Mantis and,
Yeah, true. Philippe,
eh yeah, Felipe
son
and
Johan was not with Mantis, but he was with 3D Realms.
yeah. Johan was in town because he was doing, mapping or texture art for Graven or something like that.
Yeah, true,
And,
yeah, and,
um
in the past, I did a bit of work on, Phantom Fury and, Mantis games. They were heavily involved with, pretty much every game, available nowadays, I think. They're doing well.
so I had just moved to Denmark. So just to, like, really quickly paint a picture of where I was at in my life. I had just
Like, how
left
long
the
were you
mili
there?
in Denmark, almost 2
No,
years.
but when we first met, like, how
Oh,
long were you there?
couple weeks.
Oh, yeah,
'Cause you showed up right after I think it was Gamescom. Uh,
something around that.
so I left America. I went to Switzerland for 1 week to hang out with my uncle and his, husband, who lived there in, at the time, they lived near Zurich. And then I went from there to Cologne for Gamescom. I met up with the entire 3D Realms crew, like, so, Nick Paulsmeyer, Crystalline Pyle, of course, Fred Schreiber, Adonis Flocchio, like, all the 3D Realms people were there. I met up with them at Gamescom. I spent the week in Cologne, and then I moved from there to Aalborg, Denmark, and I had been there maybe, like, 2 weeks because it was right after that,
Yeah.
so we filmed Realms Deep around that time as well. So it
Could
was within a few
be.
weeks.
Yeah.
I would just gotten to Denmark, and then so I'm brand new. I'm working as a producer at the time. I'm right next to Kim, who was the head of production, and one day it's just like, "Oh, we have visitors." And typically, even after this, I was always like the guy who, "Oh, there's visitors. Tyler will take care of them.
Yeah,
He'll take
yeah,
them
yeah.
he'll take them out to all the best bars and restaurants and shit in town, and then I don't have to worry." Of
It's
course.
a tough job, but someone's gotta do
I thought it was a great job. I really loved it.
it. Yeah.
But you guys showed up, and then it was like, "Hey, nice to meet you, nice to meet you." But you and me just hit it off immediately. I,
Yeah, for
like,
sure.
completely fucked off from work that day. So we just went
Yeah.
walking, 'cause, for anyone that doesn't, know, why would anybody know this? But, like, so where the Slipgate Ironworks slash 3D Realms complex was in Denmark,
Mhm.
right behind it is this giant park, and Denmark is, I think,
The
uniquely
the Land
good.
of Fantasy or something like that?
It's
What's it
called
called again?
I forget how it's said in Danish, but in English it translates to the land of imagination.
Ah, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so it's like it has, like, yeah, like, all these different little statues. Every park bench is a statue.
But
Everything
also like a musical instrument.
Yeah, there was, like, there's
Yeah,
a
yeah.
maze with, like, different musical instruments, and I remember you and I recorded this, like, slow motion video of me, like,
Yeah,
playing
yeah.
Christmas songs or something on the
Yeah,
bells.
yeah, hitting the
Yeah,
gong like boom, 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 boom.
it was so beautiful, and And there's also like the jungle gym that looks like a giant dragon and with
Oh, yeah,
slides
yeah,
coming
that
out
was
of its
cool.
mouth and everything. I think we took later on when you came back to visit, we took your kids there.
For sure,
Um,
yeah, yeah. They
yeah,
had a blast.
but it was just such a great day. It was just like
It was,
I
like,
immediately connected
we
with
were
people.
kids pretty much. We were
Mhm.
kids and we were out exploring and having fun, like, like those blissful moments of innocence, right? Even though we're both, I'm sure if you're a veteran, but you have served, um, but like
How
that
many
con
years did you serve in the military? Like
in the
enlisted in the military?
army, well, I wasn't enlisted,
Conscripted?
I s no, 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 well, enlisting, is that like a voluntary service where you
It,
just sign
in
up for a contract?
at least in America, enlisting is voluntary service.
Ah, okay,
Conscription
yeah.
is like you got pulled from the draft, which we don't do since
Okay, no, no.
Vietnam.
I was, enlisted then,
Okay.
in the army for 3.5 years, and now almost for 5 years, in the Navy.
Mhm.
And I quit as
But
a
that's like
reservist
yeah,
a couple
it's
months
like
ago.
reserve service. It's like it's not your whole life. Like your 40-hour
No, no,
job a week
no.
is not the military.
Yeah, yeah, I think, they call it weekend warriors.
So I was enlisted full time in the
Yeah.
military for 6 years. I was in the United States Air Force.
Yeah, you did pretty much double, the time I did, full time.
I don't look at it that way because we'll get into this later. But
It's different, but,
you did tours.
chronologically,
I told people what the weather was going to be. Like it's not the same.
we could have used that actually.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah. Okay. So you and I met at this point, and you and I and we'll actually have to get Johan on. Maybe all three of us at one point, just
That
talk
would be
shit. But
awesome,
so,
yeah, he'd
so
be up for it.
one of the things that we bonded over because like that he's like you and I hung out all day at the office and around the office and
Yeah.
everything, and then we go out that night and we go to a couple bars and a restaurant or whatever, just hanging out, you, me, Philip, Johan, I can't,
Yeah,
what is
yeah.
the other gentleman's name from Mantis? I remember there was another
Son,
guy, some,
son,
yeah,
S-A-N. I'm not
yeah,
sure how
like
to pronounce it, you would call it San, I guess?
maybe
Like
that
sand minus the D.
it's like short for Alexander, I think.
Could be, yeah.
Anyway, nice guy, everybody was super cool, but so you and
Yeah,
me
for
and
sure.
Johan, so Johan's a cop in the
Yeah, yeah.
Netherlands. You're a former soldier turned what do you call a Navy personnel? Because in America we say
Um,
sailor, like you're a sailor if you're in the
yeah.
Navy, but you don't sail, so you're not.
No, I don't think we have a specific term for it in the Netherlands, but,
Mhm.
you could call it sailor. I wasn't a Marine, so sailor would be like the
Right.
non-infantry Navy peeps.
Anyway, the first night we're out, we go to a place, and Johan is like, he's the oldest, wise old cop. So he
He
sits
looks like an
down.
80s hero, by the way. He's like this 80s action hero.
Yeah, he's just gorgeous, absolutely beautiful man. And so is his beautiful wife too. So he he like sits down at the table, back to the wall, so he can see the entire building.
Yeah.
You are standing next to the table, surveying the entire room, like who's in here. And
Yeah,
I
yeah.
walked the entire bar to find every exit. And none of us ever discussed this. Like none of us
No, no,
even had
no.
a conversation about it. We weren't even like, there was no, what's the plan? It was just everyone fell into order. And I felt
Yeah.
so at home. I felt like I had been by that point, I'd been out of the military for maybe like 8 or 9 months or something. I was still getting used to being a civilian again.
Mhm.
Um, and especially being surrounded by Danish people, like,
Oh, yeah,
like
the
that.
most civilians there are, I guess.
Yeah, that's the as civilian as a civilian can get is a
Yeah.
Danish civilian, right? Like, and no qualms to the Danish people or anything like that.
Oh,
It's
for
just
sure, yeah,
they're
I love them.
they live in maybe the safest, cleanest society that has ever existed that I know of. And
Yeah.
then, but the fact that the three of us just clicked so like without even communicating, we're all basically just going right back to our duty, like how we were trained to act in
It's
ranking order,
interesting.
nonetheless.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, it's muscle
Yeah.
memory, I suppose, and second nature, but I the way I remember it is you told me that, "Hey, it's interesting that, we're all sitting in this specific arrangement, as military people do," and I wasn't aware. I'm not sure if I knew by then that you were in the Air Force, but now that you said, like, I did, scan the room. Johan did scan the room as well, and you scanned the entire location
I
or
just want to know where
venue.
the exit points are. Like, where
Yeah,
can
yeah,
someone get in and out? Which is
yeah. Makes
crazy.
sense.
Why am I worried about that in Denmark? But the three of us are all worried about it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'm not sure if worried is the correct word, but you're aware of it, but not even
Yes,
consciously aware of it. Just doing it. It's super interesting.
dude. It took me until someone. Okay, the brief story. I'm pretty sure the
Sure.
statute of limitations is up about this, so I won't get in trouble for it. But
Oh.
I carry my entire life. I have always carried a knife on me at all times.
Hmm.
Uh, Coming from Alabama, that's extremely normal. Like it's I know that I learned from my experience in Denmark that it's not, but like that's totally completely acceptable normal behavior. And then I was at a nightclub or whatever with my friend Surin, who also worked with us at Slipgate, and he said something. I don't know. He was just being funny or whatever, and I was like, "I'll kill you, motherfucker!" And I pull. It was a Swiss knife. It wasn't even like a real weapon or anything. I was like, "I'll fucking stick you right now." And he took it from me, and he's like, "You can't have this back until Monday, dude. You'll get fucking arrested for having that."
Wow.
I didn't understand. It wasn't like disrespect. It was like I didn't understand that you just couldn't carry a pocket knife, but it's
Bizarre.
like super, super illegal. And
Really.
at least according to him, and in Denmark and in a nightclub, you're not supposed to carry anything that could
Oh
be
yeah, yeah. Nightclub. It
considered
kind
a
of makes
weapon.
sense. Yeah.
But to me, coming from America, it's like, why would I ever go out without a weapon of some kind to protect myself? That's a very different worldview. It's a
Yeah.
completely different way of looking at life, and I learned so much just being around all of those people. But I felt so much more at home with you and Johan because you guys were, you had a background in actually seeing how ugly the world can really be, and not just
Oh
living in
yeah.
this like what I consider to be this sort of utopia that
Hmm.
is Scandinavia at this point. Um, there's nothing,
Yeah.
no, like again, no criticism, no judgment, nothing wrong with their way of life. I respect it, but it's like I felt like a bull in a china shop the entire time I was in
Oh yeah,
Scandinavia.
yeah, yeah. Yeah. It's interesting. Like I live in the Netherlands, which is I guess relatively comparable to Denmark in terms of culture and
Your guys are
um,
much cooler,
um
better food.
and well, yeah, I eat everything, so it's hard for me to gauge which is better. But I did experience a bit of culture shock when visiting Denmark. Like the
Mhm.
people were super friendly, friendlier than what I see around me in the Netherlands. If I go to a city of a similar size, for example, super helpful people, eager to do conversation or um, help you out if you're messing up your Danish, stuff like that. I hardly know any Danish, but I can order like coffee and stuff like that.
Jag kan
Um,
snacka på dansk.
yeah, 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 I know. I
What
know.
was the
You've
word that
been
you
there for a
taught your
while.
daughter? Smoke,
Smoke a yeah, yeah,
yeah,
small cookie, smoke a
small cake,
yeah,
which
and
means cookie. It's just so
yeah, yeah,
annoying.
yeah.
Linguistically, it's the next interview after this one is with a linguist, so we're probably gonna
Ah,
really
nice.
have
A cunning one.
a cunning linguist.
I
Okay,
had to make that joke. I'm sorry for that.
that's okay. It's okay.
But
Go ahead.
yeah, where were we? Yeah, culture shock. Yeah, yeah. I think if you've seen like third world countries or been in situations that are very demanding, like physiologically, sorry, like yeah, physiologically, where you have to exert yourself, but also like no, I'm mixing those terms up. But basically, exerting your mind as well as your body,
Mhm,
and then coming back to a place as idyllic as Aalborg, the difference is very stark. And like how you mentioned that, you're still getting used to civilian life. Like I only served like 3.5 years, but pretty intensely though, as an infantryist,
mhm.
and then later I was in the artillery. Um, but it took me like way longer than I expected to like the inverse of demolishing yourself as a civilian and building yourself up as a soldier. Like the inverse doesn't happen when you leave the service. Like you're suddenly a soldier in a civilian situation with civilian rules that you might have estranged from, if that's the right way to say it. Like, those things are less familiar to you than military life. And
Mhm.
nowadays, still sometimes, things, I really have this strong need to do specific things in a specific way because that's the right way to do it. Where my wife, for example, she's lovely, but she's also stubborn like I am. And sometimes, we can butt heads a bit over how things should be done. And for her, it's silly because, there's many ways things can be done. And for me, there's the way that it should be done. And if something is not worth doing well, it's not worth doing it at all. And that's something that I think I'll carry the rest of my life in one way or another. And that's kind of, I think, one of the forces that kind of helped me roll towards the Navy, I guess,
Mhm.
which is kind of impossible, I think. If you zoom out, like how that happened is beyond coincidence. So we can start talking about like parallels in time and how things are spiraling, like not looping back on itself, but also not staying completely parallel. It's like something in between, um, where things seem cyclical. Like my father, he was a Marine for the largest part of his life. My parents divorced when I was pretty young,
Mhm.
but I always felt this need to join the army or join the military somehow, and it suited me well. But then at some point, um, when I left the army, I wasn't sure what to do. Like I couldn't really get my bearings in civil life. Um, and I thought, maybe I'll just sign up for the Marines, be a gunner on a small inflatable boat, something like that. Go to Somalia, shoot some pirates. And I was pretty naive back then, thinking, um, good and bad are black and white, no shades of gray. No idea of what drives people to piracy might be despair, hunger, stuff like that. In my mind, good, bad, that's it. And when I was like in my early 20s. But then I met my girlfriend, who is now my wife and the mother of our children. And I never showed up for the physical. So I kind of, let the Navy and the Marines hang, and joined the games industry. But then through many like I'd say that winding roads, the Navy started to look for someone who was ideally former military or active, has an affinity for simulations, and active in the games industry, and willing to coach people. And there was, I guess, only one person like that in the entirety of the Netherlands at that time, which was me. So it was kind of inevitable that even though I evaded the Navy, it found me. And it fits like a glove, pretty much. Like I've won like in the civilian world, won like in the military world. I'm no longer a reservist right now, but I still hang out with the same people. Hear the like I can talk in this super linear fashion, which suits me well. Um, so it's funny how those things happen.
I genuinely like we were talking about the muse earlier, but like in
Yeah.
every aspect of like I think it just comes to you. Like things just kind of happen and occur, and it's up to you how you react to it, of course. But
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, but
you,
in part, I do think, like, your intent is kind of like this vector. The stronger your intent, the stronger the flashlight you're shining forward, kind of, that lets you illuminate these things and navigate towards them.
I want to correct on his accent. He said flash ash light,
Flashlight.
not flesh.
Unless sponsorships involved for this podcast, of course, then go for it.
I'm gonna try to avoid. Uh, I mean, I'm not trying to throw away money, but like I really just don't see myself reading like a Fleshlight or Blue Chew ad. Like I I could be convinced, I guess, with enough money,
Yeah, yeah.
but it's like I guess what I'm trying to say is that I want to advertise things that I actually use.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Yeah, but also, like, if you were to, if you could hype up or advertise or be sponsored by things that actually promote people connecting, um
I don't
all the
think
better, right?
do fleshlights connect people or do they make people more isolated?
Maybe now you make me think of like a double-ended one, which is kind of silly. Like this is this is a new tangent, but
Touching tips. Um, let's move on from that.
yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
anyway, so the Navy, the Army, you served an entire tour in Iraq.
Yeah.
So this is what a 6 month tour, something like that.
Oh, we were like I got the choice way back when, like either go to Bosnia for half a year for more like a civilian police kind of function, but I didn't see myself doing that since I wasn't used working with civilians. I was an infantryman,
Right.
um, so I opted for Iraq, which would have pretty much the same pay but a shorter duration. But it
What
turned
year
out to
was
be
this that you were in Iraq?
from the top of my head, 2005.
Okay, so this
But
is after
yeah,
the invasions of Fallujah, and
yeah,
at that
yeah.
point, like the entire Ba'ath Party had been
Shortly after, yeah.
taken down. Just this morning, I was listening to oh, what was his name? Do you ever listen to Sean Ryan's podcast? I highly
No,
recommend it if you don't. But
Sean
he
Ryan.
just released an episode with a gentleman named do 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 do. Um, goodness, what was his name? Joe Kent. Joe Kent, who was in the army as a special operator, I believe, if I remember correctly. This was Green Berets, and
Oh,
then uh, went into the CIA as an operator. While his wife was also a linguist, so they had both actually studied at the Defense Language Institute, which is where I learned how to speak Arabic with
mhm.
the Air Force. And so it was really interesting. But like hearing him talk about, because he was there from like 2003, like the invasion.
Yeah. Yeah,
You
yeah.
know, as soon as 9/11 happened, and then it was a couple of years, and then America just was like
I'm
fully
gonna
occupied Iraq for quite
I'm
a
gonna
while.
check the date real quick. SFIR 4 dates. I think it was 2004 actually.
So you went to the
Yeah.
like you mentioned Babylon earlier, like Baghdad, or whether
Oh,
did
yeah,
you tour
yeah.
around the country, or were you just kind
Yeah,
of
we went to Baghdad once.
Mhm,
Pretty tense, even though, like, technically it was, I think, the most easygoing place at the time. Like the smaller villages, you wouldn't
mhm,
want to be there ideally. But Baghdad, while we were there, there wasn't a lot of suspicious activity or something like that. But in an environment as crowded as that and as busy and as vertical as it was, like um, it really demanded a lot of your attention just to be there and be aware of potential threats, stuff like that. So whenever we could, like go around the city, we would pretty much. But yeah, we toured around. Went to the I think it was south where everything was a lot more lush, more palm trees, some rivers, stuff like that. Um, the way we entered was actually pretty interesting. Like we flew from Eindhoven in the Netherlands,
mhm.
then landed in Kuwait in the middle of the night. I think it was like 4 a.m. or something like that. And so doors of the plane open. You walk down the stairs, and I thought, phew, the downwash of the jet engines is pretty hot. Like the not downwash, but the exhaust
Mhm.
wind or whatever it's called. And then I walked another 40, 50 meters, and I'm thinking, oh shit, it is this hot. It was like 40 something in the middle of the night. And then slowly seeing the sun creep up, blinding you, like things like it's interesting because you're already, more tense, more on edge because it's an unfamiliar environment. And you know where you're going. There's probably going to be some tense situations, so you're on edge. But the sun's brighter, the sky's darker at night. Everything seems more intense for some reason. The smells, but probably also because it was like this pivotal period in my life where I went from one, mental image of the world into another one which is different, but contains both pretty
Something
much.
about going from I'm coming from America, but I will
Hmm.
also say, like, when people picture America in their minds, they typically picture New York City, Los
Oh,
Angeles,
yeah.
the movies, like TV, like the
Yeah.
Kardashians.
Miami,
Right. I did not
what's the,
come from that
like,
part of America.
oh, yeah, yeah.
People
Yeah.
forget how fucking huge America
It's
is.
vast. Like,
So,
before last year, I never went to the States. Last year, I went had the pleasure to go to Orlando for IITSEC, like this big
uh
Navy simulation. Sorry, not Navy, military and defense simulations symposium and
mhm.
expo. Super interesting. Met a lot of cool people, but also just experiencing America firsthand is so different from the preconceived notions we have over here. Like, oh, all people are fat and food is cheap, but food is bad. Blah blah blah. Like, I yeah, those are facets you see in modern society, and America is no stranger to that as well. The food, yeah, some of it is questionable, like compared to European standards, but I'm not sure why that is. Um, but like the space, like you can drive for hours and still be pretty much in the same city, and or same municipality or whatever it's called, and like
State.
six lane roads. Yeah, like America is bigger than Europe, but Europe it's all different countries with different languages, vastly different cultures.
Yeah.
Like 2-3 hours away, and there it's so different. But the vibe overall that I got was people are actually um, pretty much, as far as I experienced them, friendly, um, happy to engage in small talk. Like Dutch people kind of fall in the pitfall of when someone asks them, "Hey, how are you?" We tell them how we are instead of say, "Hey, how are you?" as well. So that's this cultural difference.
Uh, so that's something that was really big for me in Scandinavian culture was it's actually rude to ask someone, "How are you?" So, like,
Oh, really?
in the American Southeast, so, like, basically from, like, Texas all the way to Florida, and then
Hmm.
south of, like, Illinois, basically. Everything is kind of based on this whole culture of, like, extreme hospitality. Like, everyone is super friendly, like, you can't drive past someone on the street without waving to them. It's rude not to be like even if it's just, like, sticking your fingers up off the steering wheel just to
Oh,
acknowledge the
yeah,
other
yeah,
person you see.
yeah,
How are you? Like, so for instance, I was really used to living in Aalborg, and I go to the grocery store, and it's like, you're just in and out. Like,
yeah,
the cashier is not gonna they're gonna ask you basically like, "Hey, good day. This is the price. Would you like a bag?"
yeah, yeah, yeah.
That's it. That's
Super
the
to the
whole
point.
fucking conversation. And
Yeah.
then I was at a gas station. It was like right after I had gotten back to America, in Citronelle, Alabama, which is where most of my family is from. Um, and I was walking up to the counter. I think I was buying like a 12 pack of beer or something. I don't remember what it was. And the girl at the counter was like, "Oh, how are you?" And I was like shocked. I was like,
Yeah. Welcome back.
I didn't know how to respond, and then I thought about it, and I was like, "No, this is what I've been craving the whole time." Like,
Yeah,
people
yeah.
genuinely it one of the things that I argued with a lot with Danish people because I would do that. I'd be like, "How are you?" Or I'd check in on
Mhm.
people. I'd be like, "Are you okay? Do you need anything?"
Yeah,
And they're like, "Dude, just kinda, like, fuck off, like, give me my space." And that's fine, that's
yeah.
their culture, but I really missed that so much. Because they
Interesting.
would be like the stereotype is that Americans say, "Howdy, how you doing? How are you?" And as you said earlier, the response is, "How are you?" Not,
Yeah.
"Tell you how I am." But the thing is that the option is on the table. Like, if you
Yeah, yeah.
were to be like, "Dude, it's been fucking terrible. I've had a horrible day. I got in a fight with my girlfriend or whatever, or like my kids acting up," anything like that. And some and an American from like Mississippi, Alabama, Louisiana will sit there and listen to you. They'll hold up the
It's like a
line
same
of people
team kind of
behind you.
vibe.
Yeah, like the line can wait. It's like, "Are you okay?" And they
Yeah.
really mean it. And I was trying to explain that to like Danish
Oh,
culture.
but
I'm trying
yeah,
to tell them like, "No, I actually give a
they're
fuck
pretty
about you."
cold. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, like
Yeah, they're more like like interperson distance, like the social distancing, and I'm not talking about my beer here, Corona.
Mhm.
But, um, like in Denmark, I think it's people are comfy standing like 5 meters away from each other, and in Finland, it's like 15 or something I read. Not sure if that's true,
During
but
COVID, there was a whole thing in Denmark where it was like after they got rid of the 10 meters rule of separation on buses and
it's
trains,
shoulder on shoulder again.
then they were like, great, now we can go back to 20 meters.
Oh, they had to get closer. Yeah, yeah, like I think, especially Northern European countries are more reserved, where there, moments like that are more reserved for people that are in their circle, so to speak.
Mhm.
And I found it hard to gauge, but that might be my own, like cultural background to gauge if someone was like being a good host or showing hospitality, like in a restaurant or something like that, as opposed to being genuinely interested. Um,
Oh man. I remember when
but
me, and Johan and Philippa and Zan,
some,
all
yeah, yeah.
we all went to the Visa Cafe, which is in downtown Aalborg, right next to the train station. It's a great restaurant. It's one of the best restaurants in town.
Was that the
Um,
Irish pub or?
no, 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 no. It's close, but I'm thinking like literally where the train station is in Aalborg. It's
Oh
right
yeah, yeah,
there.
yeah.
The Kennedy Arcade is what it's called. So I had just kind of really gotten there and like was learning about how restaurant culture works and all that stuff. And it's so different from the United States because there's no tipping culture. Every waiter is paid a living wage right out the gate.
Yeah,
And so the service is completely different. It's not like that it's bad, but it's in America, we're like, I expect you to go out of your way to be a great server, and I am going to reward you with a tip. That's not the
yeah.
case at all in most of Europe.
No, no.
Just that cultural difference was a big shock for me. Like just learning that like, dude, this
I'd
motherfucker don't
imagine.
they don't care about me. But then you come back to the States and it's like, you really actually you don't have to care about me at all. You just want my money. And I don't know
Yeah,
which one
yeah.
is
It's
better.
like this double-edged sword.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. But
Yeah.
yeah, I had a blast in Orlando visiting the Bass Pro and
I'm
trying like experience a slice of the American life. Oh, nice. Bass Pro. Yeah, yeah. Most awesome store I've ever been in, I think.
mhm.
Um like who the hell needs like 50 different kinds of duck whistles? I'm not sure how many ducks there were, but I think at least one of the species have like two whistles just in case.
Yep.
It's crazy. But yeah, it was like as someone only used to like tiny stores, this was amazing. But also like the food was really good at like have you ever been to Outback Steakhouse? Like my
The
colleagues listening to
the
this, they
the
will
Australian, I'm doing quotes here, Australian
yeah, yeah,
steakhouse of America, yeah. Yeah,
yeah.
shrimp on the
Well,
barbie, mate.
good day. They had this thing like blooming onion, and you probably heard of it or maybe ever had it.
Delicious, delicious.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And was it like ranch sauce or something like that? Or
I think it was like my 13th birthday or something like that, but my parents took me out to see whatever the latest Harry Potter movie was and to Outback Steakhouse. That was like my
nice.
favorite restaurant, like chain restaurant when I was a kid. So yeah, I
Yeah,
love
yeah,
Bloomin'
yeah.
Onion. Oh my God. Oh
Yeah, for
my God.
sure.
Come on.
But also,
With
like,
that
I
that
really
mustard sauce that they give you with it, like that really
oh, I
spicy
thought I
mustard.
thought that was like ranch or something like that, but it was
It's
really,
not
really good.
ranch usually.
No?
It's no, it's like it's not quite ranch. Ranches I've noticed,
A bit more
especially
yogurty.
it's basically ranch dressing is buttermilk, mayonnaise, and what we call ranch seasoning, which is like peppers and whatever. And so in Europe, there are all these interpretations of ranch
Yeah.
dressing, which are interesting. You and I, last time you were in Denmark, we went to that burger restaurant downtown,
Yeah.
and they were like, "Oh, we have ranch dressing," and I was like,
Nah, not really.
Bring it. I was like,
Yeah.
"Bring it out, bring it out, bring it out. I want to
Yeah,
taste it."
yeah.
And I told the waitress of like because she was like really like, "Oh, it's really good." I'm like, "Oh, I bet it's really great." And I
Yeah,
tried it.
but is it
I'm like,
ranch?
this is very good, like for French fries
Pseudo.
or whatever. It's
Yeah.
good, but this doesn't taste anything like Hidden Valley Ranch. Like what
Yeah,
my
yeah.
younger brother Dallas like won't eat anything without that on it. It's like his go to
Nice.
sauce.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But it's tricky. Like some things you just can't replicate in the Netherlands or in Europe just because of food regulations. Like I got some candy from there, like Jolly Ranchers, though those hard
Yep.
whatever they're called, like hard candies, and then a bunch of jelly beans, but they didn't survive the plane ride back. I'm a sucker for jelly beans. I think that also started in Iraq, by the way, at the U.S. compound. There was this. I'm not sure what the restaurant was called, but like one day a week they had crab legs, and you have to break them apart pretty much with your multi tool. Like I was used to having a pocket knife as well as a kid too, if only for building tree houses and stuff like that. Um, so I'm also used to having a multi tool on me pretty much all the time. Um, but yeah, you would use that and crack open those crab legs, and then there was this like the cashier or whatever it's called, where you go and pay normally, but you would just have to sign your name or something like that in your country, and then they would probably bill the government back home. And
En français, it's cashier.
wait, oh, okay,
In
okay, and
in American
teller,
English, it's cashier,
cash, cashier,
but it's spelled
yeah,
exactly the same. It's
yeah,
just one of those English things.
cashmere.
That would
Fuzzy.
be nice.
But, yeah, yeah. But, I would just stuff my pockets with jelly beans, and the person at the cashier would just look at me like, "What are you doing?" But they had so much, like boxes and boxes and boxes. Um, so I didn't just, I didn't care. But so many weird things there as well. I'm not sure if I ever told you, like the first week I was at the Talil Air Base, and we heard rumors that there was a Burger King, and someone found it, and it was like this massive truck where the side popped open, and there was this actual Burger King, right, with fryers and people in Burger King attire, and making meals and stuff like that. And I
Probably
was
supplied by Halliburton.
could be, yeah, yeah. And I heard like the United States is the only military power that can deploy a Burger King anywhere in the world in like 8 hours or something like that.
It's 100% true. Every
Yeah.
single American, unless there's one that I'm not aware of, right? Every American Air Force base, there's like a guaranteed list of restaurants. There will
Oh
be
yeah,
there.
yeah, yeah.
Burger King is always one of them. Usually Subway, Charlie's Philly cheesesteaks. I don't know why it's not even like a national brand, but it's just one of those things that like it's always where they're with the military. Uh, like there's just like certain things. Like even a few months ago, I went to go visit Faith when she was in Ramstein, and we
Ramstein. Yeah,
walked.
yeah, yeah. I went there as well.
Right. I'd never been there. Like, I thought my entire career in the military, like, I can't believe I've never been to Ramstein Air Base. Like, and then I
Yeah.
go there as a civilian to meet my girlfriend, and she's like, you know, I really want Alfredo. And I'm just like browsing through like the hotels because it's the hotels in the base exchange or PX as they would call it in the army.
Yeah,
I'm not
yeah.
sure what you guys call it. Um, so we're there. We're staying in the hotel. She's like, I really want Alfredo. And I'm like, oh, there's a fucking Romano's macaroni grill like 30 fucking seconds from here. Like we could just walk downstairs and they
Yeah.
have that. And she's like, oh, that makes sense because there's always one. I'm like, exactly.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But
Super.
that is, you're right. If there
Yeah,
needs
but
to be a
so
Burger King somewhere, America will put a Burger King where it needs to be.
oh yeah, yeah, yeah. So I was standing there, and the guy at the cashier um in the Burger King trailer asked me like, "What do you want?" And I just was still baffled. So I said, and I wasn't that hungry, so I ordered a children's meal. So that guy started flipping out at me. Oh, what are you doing? You're in the middle of Iraq. You can't order a children's meal. Do you see any children here? And I'm like, this is a Burger King. Like, what's more strange? Like that I'm in the middle of the
It's
freaking
called a
desert.
mighty kids meal. You need a
Mighty kids
mighty
meal.
kids meal. A
Uh,
happy meal, right, is a McDonald's thing. That's the kids
mhm.
version for McDonald's. And then when I was a kid, it was a mighty kids meal at Burger King, which made me feel much stronger.
Yeah, 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 for sure. Spinach in there, but yeah, yeah, like, super funny cultural, well, I'm not sure if it's cultural shock or just me being an idiot, probably a bit both, maybe more of the latter. Um, so we shaved our heads, right, when we got there, well,
Right.
not shaved, but, um,
Buzz cut.
just Yeah, buzz cut. And at some point, we were invited to go bingo with the Americans, and nobody wanted to go until they said, you know, we have an ice cream machine. So all of us immediately signed up, but I didn't have any civilian clothes. Like in the middle of the desert, the hottest we measured was like 58 degrees centigrade. I'm not sure what that is in eagles per
Uh,
mile, but
Eagles per mile. What the fuck are you talking?
freedom, America. But
So 50
Fahrenheit,
50 C to Fahrenheit is
58, 58.
100 and 58 Celsius.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Holy
That was in
fuck,
the sun though, but
that's pretty warm though. Hold on,
yeah,
58
but
to
like
F is
0 humidity though.
130 for our American audience.
Yeah, yeah.
It's 136 degrees. That's
Super hot.
really hot. I mean, I'm in Tucson, and it's like
Mhm.
115 usually, but it's dry. It's the desert.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
Whereas Basra or Kuwait, that area, that's the Mediterranean, bro. That you might as well be in Alabama.
Well, yeah, we were more in the desert though at Talil Air Base, so humidity was low in general.
Yeah, Talil is hold on. I'm gonna look this up. Keep talking, but I want to get a
Asamawa.
geographic.
So yeah, so I needed to get some civilian clothes. So I got this cool Operation Iraqi Freedom basketball trunks and shirt. Got some Kanye West CDs they had there as well, like College Dropout or something like that.
This is
Uh,
Imam Air Base, Imam Ali.
Talil, yeah, they renamed it, but I think it's the same thing. It's just
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So this
yeah.
is like up from Basra. It's like northwest of Basra
Mm,
for anyone who cares to look up. So the Persian Gulf is between
yeah.
Iraq, Kuwait, and Iran, and then you have you
I think
go
it's Asamawa
north
or something like that.
northwest Imam Ali Air Base, formerly known as you said as Talil.
Talil Air Base, yeah.
Yeah, is northwest of Kuwait and the Persian Gulf. I'm just trying to put it into
Yeah,
perspective
yeah, yeah.
for anyone that's listening.
Thanks. And so my hair started growing back, and I thought, might as well if we're going in civilian clothes, I want to feel like a civilian as well a bit. So I went to the PX while I was there, got some clothes, got some CDs, and I went to the hair products aisle. They have this aisle for hair products, and I saw this jar with a grinning dude on top. I thought I need this. This is good stuff. So I went to the cashier, who was looking at me like, "You're an idiot." And I'm paying with my dollars and getting back those plastic, we call them flippos in the Netherlands, but these plastic pseudo coins where you can only change them back at the PX.
Mhm.
And I went to our shower cabin, opened the jar, put my hands in, just didn't even look, just rubbed it over my head. My entire head was black. Turns out it was for African Americans who are graying. If their hair turns gray, they can use that hair product. Smells nice. You don't look as gray. But on me with my blonde hair, it looked super ridiculous, like I was putting shoe polish on my head. So luckily, I could borrow some other hair products from a colleague of mine. Um, and then we went to the bingo. I won a huge painting of a donkey, which probably is still there, and got some ice cream. But then on another day, I ran out of toothpaste. So I went back to the PX. When I walked in, I saw the same cashier, which is like a recurring word for this evening, it seems. But I went to the toothpaste aisle or dental products or whatever. I saw something called Kooky Dent. I thought, okay, nice toothpaste, got it. So I went to the cashier. She was looking at me like, "You're an idiot." She's not saying it out loud, but she was looking more intensely. So I went back to the shower cabinet again, put that stuff on my toothbrush, put it in my mouth, and it stuck. Apparently, that stuff was for dentures, right? If you have dentures, you put that stuff on there so you can, bite an apple, stuff like that. Your dentures remain in place.
So I had a
Um,
very similar experience in Denmark because I was
oh, really?
trying to buy detergent, like a
Ah,
washer detergent for my clothes, and all that they what I actually bought was just like fabric softener. But I just
no,
recognized the
it
word
smells nice though. Yeah,
laundry. I just like
yeah,
I
yeah.
knew that word and I was like, that's what I want.
I need
Yeah.
this. Yeah.
But what I was upset about is like no one stopped me. No one was like, hey, I'm pretty sure. Like I even told, like I walked into the fucking Netto across the street from my apartment. I
Yeah.
told the girl, I'm probably about to make 3 or 4 trips. Like, I just moved here. I need mops, groceries, all that kinda shit. I need everything that you need to run a household. So I'm gonna make
Yeah.
several trips back across the street. At no point did anyone say, "You probably need detergent, not fabric
Yeah, yeah,
softener."
yeah.
Like, so I understand what you mean. Like, just why didn't you just say so? Like, it would have
Yeah,
been
and it
so
kinda
helpful
makes you
to
feel
just
silly, right?
well, it doesn't make me feel silly because, like, I wouldn't know better. It more makes me feel
Mm.
disappointed in people's, um I won't say inability, but, like, just their
Lack of engagement?
unwillingness
Yeah.
to just be helpful. Like, it's like you're so afraid to hurt someone's feelings by making them feel wrong that you would rather them just fuck up and then come back, and I'm like, "Just tell me."
I see what you mean. I don't think
Yeah.
though that it's, that's how you would see it through your cultural lens,
Mhm.
but I think they were not aware that, they were being of disservice, right?
No, and it's okay. It's not
Yeah,
something I hold
yeah.
as a resentment. It's more like I'm just saying that
No,
I
no, but
empathize with
it's interesting.
nobody told you that it was glue you were about to put on your fucking teeth, you know?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So bizarre, such a weird experience, but it's so interesting. Like the idea that you can buy a TV and an Xbox while you're, deployed to a war zone pretty much.
Mhm,
And it was relatively calm when we were there, and we had, how'd say that, since we were Dutch and being recognized as non U.S. American military, the locals were a bit less. I'd say that antagonistic. So we did occasionally get stones thrown or shots fired or stuff like that, but not as much as the Americans would. We drove different vehicles. We had a different flag. So their beef mainly was with the Americans,
mhm,
and we
rightfully
were
so.
also there. Yeah, yeah. It's a really, like, looking back. I'm glad I went there, for my, world experience, and I was able to luckily do more net good than bad, I think. Like, whenever we, came back from, patrols or whatever, we had water left, we would just, slow down, roll it towards the side of the road where the kids were or civilians were. They knew we were coming. They know we would probably have supplies left, and we would just share it. And that was also, of course, to kind of maintain like a friendly attitude with them. So they knew that if they were going to mess with us, we would not be as generous, and we knew, like, if we share what we can, they'll probably will not be, uh, causing trouble, basically. Um, so
I
that
think
that did help.
that's something that navies have that armies don't have, is this extreme formality around flying a flag on the ship, and so, like, even if you watch Star Trek, which I'm a huge fan
Oh
of.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I just
So,
finished the Next Generation in its entirety again, and I'm doing Deep Space now.
best shows ever. I love Deep
Yeah,
Space.
yeah,
I love all of Star Trek, but, like, The Next
yeah, yeah.
Generation is the best thing ever. But my point
Same
is
here.
it's all based on, like, so, Gene Roddenberry, who founded, Star Trek, was in the Air Force, but the
Mhm.
entire idea of how Star Trek works is based on naval
It's
practices.
yeah, it's
So you're
super
on a
popular
ship,
among the Navy. Yeah,
and so there's even a US, warship called the Enterprise
yeah, yeah,
for that
yeah.
reason, yeah. So
Which was first though? Like, the Enterprise from, Star Trek, or
as far as I understand it, the Navy ship, the Enterprise, was named after the USS Enterprise in Star Trek back in,
that's pretty
the late
cool.
'60s. Um, what not to get on too long of a tangent about it, but, like, the point I'm trying to make is this idea of, like, there being a really universally agreed upon diplomacy based on how you interact with another ship. So, like,
Yeah.
your ship and my ship meet in the middle of the ocean or space or whatever, and your captain can come on my boat with a 100% guarantee that we're not gonna fucking axe that dude, because that would mean
Yeah,
war.
yeah, yeah. Yeah.
But we're gonna have a diplomatic talk, and that's a lot of that is based on like what flag are you flying, how do you communicate, etc. And on land, in an army situation, uh, I can't imagine that. I've never experienced that myself, but it's like, you say we're driving different vehicles, we have a different flag, they have different expectations of us
Yeah.
based on the Dutch flag versus the American flag.
Yeah,
That's true. That's
and
very
how we
true.
were able to present ourselves. Like whenever we were able to, we would go without helmets on
Mhm.
because it would show that we didn't see them as much of a risk, but also that we were I'd say that confident that they would not cause us trouble. So you kind of get that status quo where you can not letting your guard down is the wrong term, but you can I'd say that there's this spiral of violence, right? So you want to be at the bottom ideally. So there's no need to escalate. And when things do escalate, you want to, you know, escalate beyond what they would escalate to, just to diminish their morale, for example. But by showing that we were like we were there, we were doing our jobs, we were not interfering with them, they would not interfere with us. Whenever we could maintain ourselves that way, things were fine. You still get some bullshit every now and then. You're not there for no reason, after all. But all in all, we had a relatively peaceful period. Um, my main job there was mainly driver and radio guy, but we would alternate with the gunner as well. Sometimes you would have like an 84 RPG launcher, stuff like that. Um, so you would rotate to keep things fresh, but sometimes you would just have super boring guard duty as well, like 12 hours on, 12 hours off, sitting in an airstrip with nothing landing or leaving. In the middle of the night, it's pretty cool actually. You could see tons of shooting stars. One time I had these MVGs, like night vision goggles, and I looked up and there's pretty much more stars than darkness out there, which was mind blowing, right? And that was like with an old, like 2004 night vision goggles. So nowadays you have color vision, way more clarity, stuff like that. It'll be really cool to look again with something newer.
So, I mean, if at any point you get uncomfortable and you don't want to talk, we can edit
Yeah,
everything
sure.
out. It's all good. But you were injured in Iraq.
No. Yeah, I got a sunburn, but that hardly counts.
Where
But no,
where
no, I
did
wasn't
you
injured.
where did you get hurt?
How do you mean? Like in the army?
You told me at one point, and forgive me if I have the story wrong, but that
Sure.
you were blown up. You had
No, no,
sustained.
no, no. That was luckily not me. Like, we were driving at Albata, which is like this. We call it Boeverdorp, like a village of bad guys, basically, insurgents, people looking to cause trouble. And when we were driving there, we did. There were shots fired. There were rocks thrown, but we managed to just plow through. I'm not sure if we popped smoke, but we just drove on past fast. But a couple hours later, there was this Dutch military police guy, Jeroen Severs. I'm not sure what his rank would be in comparison to
Give
U.S. ranks.
his E level or his O level.
I'm NCO, non-commissioned officer.
So he's
Probably,
E5 or above, basically.
I'm not sure what I'm not familiar
It
with
would
those
be
terms.
so every military uh within NATO that I understand of goes
Mhm.
E1 through E9. So there
Could be.
in the Air Force it would be like Airman Basic, Airman First Class, Senior Airman, Staff Sergeant, which is E5. Uh
Yeah, I think he would be equivalent to E5,
okay.
but I might be off.
He's definitely
So
E5 or above. If he's an NCO, he's somewhere
yeah,
between corporal and like chief master sergeant.
Yeah, yeah.
Something like that. Yeah.
And so they ran into an ambush where someone fired an RPG into the G wagon, and he didn't make it. And there was just hours difference from us being there, and that I never met him in person. I still remember his name. It made a bit of impact, and in one way, you're happy that your squad didn't get hurt,
Mhm.
um, but you're also like super sad because this will not only did someone lose their lives, but also this sets the tone for the rest of the mission because it's hard to de-escalate from there. Um, so that was yeah, that was very bad. Um,
Why is it that you were afraid to walk on grass then?
yeah. So there were some paths carved by walking on the base, and
Alright.
not everything was concrete, but some of those paths they found unexploded ordnance. Like this was a former Air Force base of Saddam Hussein's Air Force, if I'm correct,
Yep.
and two Gulf Wars plus Operation Iraqi Freedom, and not sure what the other one's called. Um, so there was a shitload of DU everywhere, a lot of gravel with asbestos. It was a hostile environment, but I was really drilled, and I did a couple of ammunition awareness courses as well. How to recognize IEDs, but also poking for mines if you have to exfiltrate from a minefield or whatever. Um, like you don't walk on grass. Like you never know what's what's under there,
Yeah.
and
It's
they
just something
they
I'll
actually
always remember about you is, like, when we first met, you like, we were walking through the park and you're like, I don't wanna."
Yeah, weird, isn't it? Like it's like
Yeah.
almost like this reflex, or if you burn yourself on a stove, you'll never touch it again without knowing if it's hot or not. And I didn't walk on an ID, luckily, but that awareness of like it makes me uncomfortable to I guess I'm pretty adverse to a degree. There's acceptable risks with acceptable outcomes, and there's unacceptable ones. And whichever risk you can accept because the outcome is favorable or the risk itself is low, that's your own balance. But I guess mine is nitpicky when it comes to walking on grass. Like grass that, like now we have this big grass field in the backyard, and I'm lying on there, so I kind of got over it, I guess. But
I feel like it's one of the it's something that doesn't get talked about enough publicly, but trauma through not necessarily personal experience, but from witness experience.
oh
So,
yeah, yeah.
like
Yeah, but also secondhand experience, like you said, not necessarily witnessed, but I know people lost legs because they went off the path. And in mission area, you don't go off the path unless you have to, right? Unless there's a valid reason to. And one other thing that, like right when I got back from Iraq, I think I got back in like November that year, right after my birthday, and we went to this discotheque with friends, and they had this like a party popper on the ceiling. It pops, and then glitter comes out, and there was this stage where there were these dancers, and everything a young man wants. Um, so the thing when it popped, and immediately I dropped to the ground, and my friends were like, "Hey, what's going on?" And I was like, "Yeah, my shoelace became untied." But
yeah,
that was the first time I had that visceral reaction where something happens and immediately you take action, and thinking becomes later. Thinking comes later, right? So to this day, still, I don't really like fireworks. At least I don't like them if they are. Um, like unannounced. If there's a fireworks show, I'd love to see it, right? All those cool sparks and whatever. But if someone throws a, firecracker somewhere near me, I'm super triggered. Um, and it took me years to get rid of it. But whenever I would leave the house, I would have that mental checklist that popped up, like helmet, rifle, flak vest, gas mask.
yeah.
You couldn't help it. You just go tuck 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 tuck. So every time you go out the door, you have this this half a second of hesitation.
Even just something as simple as, like, as soon as I walk out the door, my hat goes on. As soon as I walk in the door, my hat goes off.
Yeah,
Just
yeah, yeah.
that
Stuff like that.
like, but when it becomes more things, it's part of your routine.
Yeah.
People
Yeah, yeah,
don't really
but
understand that if they don't live it.
there's strengths in there as well. Like the last thing I would do in preparation for whatever was polish my shoes. So the act of polishing my shoes boosts my confidence in whatever I'm about to do because that is the very last thing that I can do to prepare, which means I'm prepared as much as I can be. So whenever I was pitching for a game that I was making like a couple of years ago, um, my shoes were polished, so nothing could happen. Like I had my story straight. I was confident. So things like that tend to go very well because you bring that energy. And but one thing that I also had to kind of unlearn was whenever there was a moment of rest, I would just fall asleep, like pretty much immediately. And when I just got together with my girlfriend, now my wife, um, we were going to do some big groceries by car. Like I think it's probably like 400 meters from where we lived at the time. So a 30-second drive. Just we needed the car because we can, stuff it full of the groceries. And I would sit in the car and just go stand by. I would sleep, and then whenever the car stopped, I was just awake again. And she said at some point that she thought I was like narcoleptic or something. But no, if you have downtime, you sleep because you never know when you're going to be able to catch up on rest, right?
It's very interesting. I cannot relate at all. Like, I just don't sleep. So, it's not a good thing, and it's something that I've had to work on with, like, the VA and stuff, whatever I
Oh
have to
yeah,
do
yeah,
to
yeah.
get over it, but I just don't sleep.
Because
Like,
you feel like you have to stay alert all the time?
always, all
Yeah.
the time. I'm being as honest with you as I can. Like, I
Yeah, yeah, I
do
appreciate
not
it.
ever feel comfortable just letting my guard down. It's like,
Do you
it
think
never
that's
happens.
do you think that might be like a comfort zone thing? Because, you move around a lot, you did so many different things that you never kind of got accustomed and kind of felt your comfort zone increase to the point where you are able to relax like, "Oh, I know this. This is good. I
I
can I
think
can close
I
my
think
eyes."
where I'm at in life right now is, like, the beginning of the healing from that,
That's
but
great to hear.
I
It's a
went
good place to
for
be in.
I not even just military related, I mean, like, most of my life,
Yeah.
I didn't even feel comfortable sleeping in a bed with my clothes off. Like, so, people will be like, "Okay, it's time for bed," and they put on their jammies, and they go to bed and all that kinda I've never done that.
Yeah.
Ever in my life. Never. Like, I always would be, like, fully dressed. Even when I was in the military, I would typically sleep on the couch in my uniform so that when I woke up, I was ready to go. And I know that's, like, really fucked up, and, like, even my friends in the military are like, "What are you doing?" But, like, that's how my brain was programmed.
Yeah.
So, I was never, and I'm still not able to just be like, "I am relaxed. It is time for
Oh,
bed."
yeah, yeah.
Like, so
Yeah,
the
for
idea
me,
of
it's
being,
more
like,
like
in
a
a
switch.
I can't just be on a plane or like, "Oh, there's downtime, now I'm gonna nod off." I just don't
Yeah, yeah.
sleep. Uh, like total insomnia.
Yeah. Yeah, how'd say that? At some point, it will wear off, but what like unrelated to sleep, but what really gave me peace of mind was when I was working with Meta, first Camouflage, and then they get purchased by Meta.
Mhm.
Um, they I had a blast there, by the way, really great people. And also, one of the reasons I think that the best producers probably are American, just because they genuinely care about people. Like the producer I had at Meta was such a champion. Um, but I had the opportunity to talk to a coach there, and she was more of a, I'd say, therapist than a coach, even though they were coaching sessions. But it really
Kinda
allowed
like
me,
Vini at Slipgate Ironworks was like that.
oh, nice. Yeah,
She
it's
she
so
was
good to
literally
have.
like she was literally a psychologist that they hired as HR, and I was like, "Perfect, we need a
Bam.
a
Yeah.
child psychologist nonetheless." I'm like, "For a video game company?
Yeah, yeah,
A
yeah,
plus,
for sure,
A
yeah.
plus.
Yeah, it's such a bizarre slice of society, basically, a video game, studio. Imagine a video game studio with video game peeps embedded in the Navy. Like, the
Mhm,
cultural differences are sometimes really stark, but it's really cool to see how, those very different kinds of people can also really enrich each other. It's like yin yang kind of.
mhm.
Um, but those coaching sessions really helped me, like, reflect back on why I was doing certain things the way I did, and where did that stem from, and what happened before, what led up to it, and kind of zoom out and rethink and break some patterns. Like, hey, I am doing that, and is it conductive? No, it isn't. So why am I doing it? And I was, I guess, for years too proud to accept help, right? Especially for things like mental issues or things like that, because I was a veteran, I was a tough guy, I was whatever. All these basically excuses to kind of enforce this image I had of myself, which was at best incomplete, and at its most realistic, like, inaccurate.
I definitely
Um,
still personally struggle with that. Like, it's very difficult for me to just trust someone with my emotions.
for sure,
Like,
yeah,
I
yeah.
got used to you don't do that. You don't show someone I'm gonna use quotation marks in
Weakness,
my
yeah,
hands, but
yeah.
weakness is the thing. Like, you don't give
Yeah.
anyone ever any reason to that they could exploit your
Mhm.
emotional side of you. And that's
Yeah,
not
and
it's it's not fair to judge anyone for it, but it's like when you're saying what you're saying, dude, I
yeah.
hear you 100%, and I still struggle with it even today.
Yeah,
So,
and
and
it's also kind of unfair towards yourself, from yourself, right? Because, how I kind of see things after all those coaching sessions, um, is like those knee-jerk things, gut reactions, negative, like, images or thoughts, or speaking to yourself in a negative way. It seems to me, um, that those are tools that your subconscious is handing you, but those tools were kind of created or trained when you were a kid, and your subconsciousness. I kind of see my subconscious as that little kid. That is trying to help. I'm trying to do what's best for me, but I have these outdated tools that are no longer useful. But still keep slapping them around my ears because that's what I have. So if you kind of manage to kind of reformulate those thoughts, reformulate those things in, like, hey, I appreciate, this is coming from a good place, but the way that it's being given to me is not the best way, right? I need to think different about this. And one extreme example, which is not my thought, it's an anecdote I heard. Like, if someone hands you their baby, right, you feel like this is the most breakable thing in the world, and you mentally you see yourself dropping it or whatever, juggling it. You have that image of, oh shit, but it's not something that is meant to be actionable. It's like, hey, you need to be aware that this is super precious and you need to be careful. So by having those thoughts, by having those images, you're aware that you need to focus on the well-being of this baby that someone allows you to hold, right? This is just one example that came to mind. um,
I
but it's just,
found that it was so if it's someone's baby, that's easy. I quickly switch into
baby
childcare
mode.
mode, very
Yeah,
easy.
yeah.
Um, if it's you, if it's someone else
Mhm.
who's talking to me about their post traumatic stress or like what they went through or anything at
Mhm.
all, it's so easy for me to say to you or to them, get help. It's so easy, like do all the things.
Yeah, yeah. But it's also the
But
manly
for
thing. Like, you
myself,
are solution
I'm
oriented.
supposed to be tough. I'm supposed to be the guy who knows how to deal with it, and I'm just gonna be like and it's
Yeah.
almost a catch-22 because when you get to that point and when I was in the Air Force, by the way, I was like the liaison for mental health because I had been through all of it. Like every
Yeah.
program that the Air Force offered for mental health, I had been through. And then it was so easy for me to tell other people how easy it is to do, and yet the truth is I did not seek therapy really until my commander ordered me to.
Yeah.
Like,
Then there's
you
no way around it.
yeah, like, you must.
Yeah.
And then I feel like such a dick because I'm not practicing what I preach.
Yeah.
Um, I'm telling
Yeah,
everybody else, like, if you need help, just get it. If you need help, just get it. Like,
but you
I will drive you myself. I'll fucking do anything in the
yeah.
world to protect you or help you or whatever the fuck. And then I always felt like, and then once I've done that, I'm by myself. I'm
Yeah, but you also have this blind spot in the shape of yourself, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
People are often blind to their own sometimes their needs, but, pitfalls, basically. And, once I embraced, those coaching sessions and I sat there crying behind my computer screen, right, because of some childhood trauma being dug up, just for me to kind of rub my nose in it and see, like, if, it wasn't that bad if you look at it with your current frame of mind. And that kind of helped me, release baggage I wasn't aware I was carrying even. And, like, I really wanted myself to get that relief. I wanted, I felt like that child in me deserves to be relatively unburdened, but especially by stuff that isn't, I would say that's current. Like, no need to torture yourself over stuff in the past, when you can use that same energy for more constructive things, like, being present, and talking to people and hearing their experiences and enrich each other's lives like that. And I felt a bit silly when um, I felt a bit silly about how I kind of postponed it and found myself to be, I'm too cool to do therapy or whatever. It's a silly notion. Once
Yeah.
I was able to see that
I don't I
about
wanna clarify
myself at some
this.
point.
I've never thought I'm too cool for therapy.
No,
The
I'm not saying
biggest
that, but
the biggest complex for me was always, I know for a fact that there's someone else here who needs this time more than I do. So it's like almost a martyr complex, like a self-sacrifice thing. It's like,
yeah,
even though I know I need help, someone needs it more than me, so I should not occupy government resources and time,
yeah,
taking that away from somebody who, like, eh, for me, it was like personal life, it was childhood, it was, some very minimally, honestly, stuff that happened to me because of the military. And then I'm sitting next to somebody who just got back from fucking Afghanistan or Iraq or wherever, or in some cases, like way back, I know guys that were
mhm,
fucking in Vietnam and shit. And I'm like, dude, that guy needs help. I'm not gonna fucking take a second away from that guy's time. And
yeah.
that's a really stupid way of looking at it, but that's what I was up against when I was
Oh yeah,
seeking mental
yeah,
health. Yeah. Uh,
yeah. And
Thank
you
God for
can.
the chaplain corps. Literally. No pun
Oh yeah,
intended,
yeah.
but literally thank God for chaplains.
But you can kind of stand in your own way in that respect, but, um, like, through trial and error and a lot of advice from others and, allowing myself to accept that advice instead of, being too proud or whatever. Um, if you're not there for yourself, it's gonna be harder to be there for others. So you kind of owe it to everybody to be there for yourself as well. And, it's just like maintaining your gear, maintaining your mental state of mind and maintaining your physical state is kind of like what you're supposed to do as a human, not necessarily as a military person, I think. Um, you want to try and be able to do things, from a, uh, optimal point, so to speak, right? You don't want to be disabled, by not having worked out enough or whatever. And some people don't have a choice in being disabled or not. But I kind of see myself as like this hump of clay, and with a bit of effort, I can kind of mold it into, what I think would be a good spot for me. But what is good for me right now might not be the same in like 10 years, and it might have been good in the past. Like, you are not a fixed, personality or a fixed person, right? You come from a different place, you go to a different place, and you evolve as you go,
I
and that
think
can include,
we're all far deeper spiritual beings than our bodies in this
I
world
think so too.
manifest.
Yeah.
We can get into a lot of that esoteric shit probably in a little bit. I think actually right now would be a good time to take a little break because I actually have to pee. Um,
Sure.
but I do want to get into that side of things because I think that's really uh, gonna be like
It's
the anchor of
interesting.
this whole conversation. It's what you and me bond over. So, all right, let's move forward. So the thing that I wanted to kind of bridge that into is like, we covered a lot of the military stuff and everything, but I
Yeah.
really want to know. So you were not involved in the program, but with people who were involved in the remote viewing program, if I understand correctly.
Oh, well, that's I wish it was. No,
Tell me more about this.
yeah, so as a kid, um, I was this, like, weird kid where, due to my parents divorcing, I guess, I've had this, unsatiable need for answers
Mhm.
to pretty much everything, because the more I knew, the larger the chance would be that, I would figure out life, basically. And, I was, like, drawn to, esoteric stuff in the library. They had this massive, like, aisle pretty much of all kinds of weird books like Nostradamus and, stuff about remote viewing, about aliens and Bigfoot, and, it was not in the fiction section, and more in the science section, but it was, like, somewhere in between, I suppose. Um, and
The
one
word
thing
is
I
English is esoteric.
Esoteric, yeah, yeah. So, fast forward a bit, like, throughout my childhood, I kept reading that stuff, and, we had a pretty violent childhood. So even years after, when I was a young adult, even after I left the army, a lot of the traumatic stuff kind of came bubbling up. But, for some reason, I was often aware, of having a nightmare while I was having a nightmare. So I kind of was, it was literally lucid dreaming. So I would, realize, like, hey, this is a dream, and then I could confront the situation in any imaginable way, and, do that like several times per night, in some cases, I suppose. And I would write down my dreams as well. I have, like, stacked this big of dreams of the past 15 years, because, I find it super interesting to read, sorry, to dream. Not that I don't read them back, I just write it down to signify to my subconscious, hey, this stuff is important, better pay attention, so I remember my dreams better, which increases the chance of being lucid. So by having, like, this, I found, uh how to say it? I just noticed that I was able to lucid dream, right? And in part it was because I had glasses whenever I could see sharp, and knowing I did not have glasses on, I knew it was a dream. So that kind of helped me become proficient at it. And, that kind of really helped me, I would say, that navigate some bad childhood stuff,
Mhm,
like, youth violence, things like that. I could, talk myself out of the situation. I could de-escalate, escalate, um, swear at that person, whatever. Every possible angle you can tackle something, I did, over the years. And at some point, it
in
just,
your dreams.
yeah, yeah. And at some
Yeah,
point, it just, settled in. The dust settled, and it no longer was traumatic. It was something would look back on, realize, yeah, those were, um, crappy situations, but I'm glad I've grown out of it. And having that experience, does not, I'd say that, um, what I do with that experience, is what counts, not how I let the experience define me.
mhm.
And, having lucid dreamt all that time and read about, remote viewing, I was wondering, like, is there a like, if it's a Venn diagram, like, where is the overlap? Is there overlap? Is it a Venn diagram? So I started reading, books, by Ingo Swann and, Robert Monroe,
Right.
and, oh, I'm forgetting,
If you think of it,
an important
when we're
author.
done, link, like, Amazon or wherever you
Yeah, yeah,
links
for
for
sure.
the books you read. Yeah, we'll throw it in
Yeah,
the
will
show
do.
notes. You should set up an
Um,
Amazon affiliate link, and then we can get you much.
yeah, that would be cool.
Yeah,
But, no, no, all the credit for the podcast goes to you. Um,
I'll do it.
Damn,
I'll
I
fund it
forgot
for
his
you.
name. Yeah, yeah, sure. Go for it. Um, Man, it's on the tip of my tongue, but I'll remember.
So my reading list, just to and maybe it'll jog your memory. Lately, I've been reading a lot of Stephen Fry's mythos, like the Greek
Oh,
stuff,
nice. Yeah, you mentioned.
heroes, mythos, and then Billy Carson. I know he's a very
Oh, yeah, yeah,
controversial
yeah.
character in a lot of ways, but, Epic of
I heard a
Humanity
podcast
and,
with him.
the Emerald Tablets of Thoth, I would recommend. I always have the Eddas on me. I guess that's like a
Oh,
scanning evening
nice.
thing, but I always have like that shit. And then I
Oh,
got
yeah.
really into Crowley. I got into tarot and Crowley actually like right when I got back to America because a lot of people there's like that Netflix show where like tarot is like this evil like Ouija board style thing, but it's like tarot is just a
Oh,
language.
I have
Tarot
an
is a
anecdote
language.
about that.
Let's hear it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, let's finish up with where I was going first.
Yeah.
Russell Targ was the other author. Like at Stanford Research Institute, Harold Podhoff, and Ingo Swann developed the CRV protocol, like coordinate remote viewing protocol that was used by the CIA to describe targets in the distance. And it all sounded like this cool James Bond, Mission Impossible style thriller, right? You know, psychic spies. That's the stuff.
Or they're
You
even
know,
not
cool
not just
movies.
remote viewers, but like a child time traveling team involved in the
I
CIA.
read something about that, but
Yeah.
I'm not familiar with that.
Whether or not they really travel through time, it's just the fact that the military invested
Yeah, yeah.
in
Well, if the
this
enemy might be
research.
doing it, you kind of
The
have to
Russians
explore those
were doing
venues.
like, the Russians
Yeah,
they did have a remote viewing program. It was actually, I won't say
way
bigger, but
before.
more
Yeah,
people
yeah.
involved. And then they had even during the Cold War, had a, like, what do you call it? Like a meeting with the US remote viewing program director just to compare notes, like, "What are we doing here?"
Interesting.
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
It's so interesting, and it's something that
Yeah.
I never believed in. I've always been a skeptic
I've
until
always been curious,
I
and
was, like,
I
27. I would never believe in anything metaphysical. Like, if you can't prove it to me
interesting.
with, like, hard math, I was not gonna believe in it.
Oh yeah,
And then it was
yeah.
around the time that I turned 26, 27 that I had this opening, like, I went through a lot of really traumatic experience at that time, but then I recognized, like, I am so much more open-minded now that I've gotten through this trauma,
Yeah.
and I'm not trying to cut you off, I'm just trying to kinda, like, lead
No, no,
into the
no.
story a little
It's
bit
like a
more.
baptism by fire, I guess, in a
Yeah,
way.
yeah, and then
Yeah.
I was like, "Dude, what's up with this remote viewing shit? What's up with the like, what does this mean?" Like,
Yeah.
it can't be all bullshit. It can't be.
Yeah, I was like reading like the skeptic takes and the hard like scientific takes,
Mhm.
physics takes on it, and it's something that shouldn't be possible. Kind of like how Einstein described spooky action at a distance, talking about quantum mechanics. But I was so curious and so eager to learn and to know and kind of like explore the bounds of what it is to be a human, right? And so I got I think it was Ingo Swan's book. Um, I forgot the name, but I'll drop a link. Um, it's something. Well, I'll find it later.
Resurrecting the Mysterious, The Kiss of
No, he
Earth,
he was a very
Stardust,
productive guy.
uh,
No, psychic
Penetration.
renaissance or penetration. I think penetration.
Penetration.
And
Yeah.
yeah,
I think he was on Art Bell. I think that's why I know him.
yeah, he
He was,
was.
like,
And
on
on
Coast to Coast or something like that, yeah.
Yeah, and on Jeff
Mhm,
Rense, I'm not sure how to pronounce it. But, so there was this protocol, and the method was, and I'm butchering it, but I'm describing how I did it and my interpretation and execution. Um, so the method was you get an envelope, a sealed envelope, which has coordinates, and then you just sit down it doesn't need to be in the dark or whatever. You don't need to close your eyes. You just sit there with a blank piece of paper, black pencil or ball pen or whatever, and you just to kind of get the juices flowing or get the muse attention, if you will. You just put a stripe on the paper or something like that, kind of to start the process. It seems, and I would just draw whatever would come to mind. So how I started was I went to randomstreetview.com or something like that. There's a website. I think it's called Random Street View,
mhm.
and you have a button and it shows you a random location. And there's this responsive version for mobile websites as well. You could use on your phone. So I held my finger above the button. I turned my phone upside down, and I would, tap the screen with my finger, put the phone down, sit down with a blank piece of paper with a pen, and I had this idea of like a vanishing point, and it
Mhm.
wasn't something visual I was getting, more like an impression or like thinking of
Nice.
something, thinking of remembering something where you don't get any visual information, you just get the concept of what you're trying to remember, even though you don't know what it is. That's kind of how it felt. So I felt like there was this vanishing point with lines going to a central point, um, which was kind of like a road, and then to the left there was some vertical stuff like a row of buildings with a roof, and then I had the idea like there's something hanging, a dangly thing, like maybe like an inverted arch or something like that. So I drew like this line, curved line, something hanging like a rope, and a pole. And I really felt the urge to draw behind the pole a tree, but I thought, no, this is like I'm feeling this urge to do this. This is probably imagination taking over. I should stop right now. So I turn over my phone to see if there's any match between what I drew and what the random location was. Turns out I missed the button. I tapped just next to it, so I didn't do anything. So I'm not sure what I was thinking. So I just hit the button, and this location in Finland came up, and it's like this street view panorama, right? So I was rotating around, and it might be that I had my phone upside down because I saw it from the different. Like I was looking in the wrong direction. So I rotated the panorama. There was this row of buildings, a telephone wire on the telephone pole, and a tree behind it. I put down my phone, I put down the paper, and I just sat there with goosebumps, like, what the actual fuck is going on? First time I swear on this podcast, by the way. Sorry for that.
Nah, it's okay.
But I try to be a wholesome guy.
Set a
But
precedent.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And
My
so,
podcast, there's gonna be a lot of cussing. It's
oh
all
yeah,
good.
yeah, cussin' be bussin'. But sorry. Um, Shout out to Adam, my colleague at the Navy, who is the cool kid, even though everybody calls him Boomer. I'm the Boomer. Um, he's 30, and I'm turning 41. So I was there, sitting there, freaked out, like, hey, what are the odds that I did not actually click the thing? So I drew something that I was about to experience somehow at a distance, and this was exactly how it should work, but the fact that it did kind of blew my mind, and I was reluctant to ever try again, actually, really. Um, right now, I'm actually reading up again. I'm in Russell Targ's book now. I'm not sure which one. I have so many books, but which is kind of like the introduction to the whole concept as well as the protocol. So I did Ingo Swan's approach. I'm going to do Russell Targ's approach with a blank slate to see if I can replicate this, because there's so many people on this earth that there's bound to be people winning 10 lotteries, right? It's just inevitable, unless they never buy a lottery ticket, but they would have won it 10 times just through the sheer power of the amount of people and statistics. So this could be a fluke, even though I want to believe in this stuff, and it feels like there is something here. I hit something, I struck something, and it started resonating, and now I'm kind of like
What is it?
anxious or a bit of afraid to kind of push through and push that door open. Maybe I don't know why, because it maybe just got too real and came too close. But I firmly believe in remote viewing now after having that experience and seeing all the released CIA docs, basically all the vetted studies and everything. And there's still, I'd say that it's still out there in woo woo land where it's a bit frowned upon to talk about that stuff, especially in the Navy where we're all supposed to be rational people. But some of my colleagues, like I asked them, like, "Hey, anyone ever had this like a weird experience that you think you shouldn't have had?" And one colleague mentioned that he was standing in front of a colleague of his, and with his back turned towards him, and he suddenly got goosebumps and thought like something's going on. So he turned around, and I think the guy had a stroke or something like that, just outside of his field of vision. But in close proximity to him, he just felt like, oh, something's going on. And he just sees the guy going to the ground. Um, so, and he's like the most rational minded IT person I know, which tend to be thinking, very linearly and structured. where I'm as a I may not be like the average material artist or game artist or whatever, but I do have like artist brain where I think in spaghetti, kind
No,
of.
I think that it's really important to acknowledge these things and not to dismiss them as
Yeah,
just like
it
phenomena or whatever because
well,
this
it
is
is
we have
direct
data.
experience.
We have
It's
like
direct experience, yeah, and it's a facet of being a human. And to turn your back on parts of being human is disallowing yourself to be fully human, right?
we have clearly some sort of latent sympathetic, empathetic, or telepathic ability.
I think
Like
anyone
any
who has
human
kids,
being who, yeah, as you say, has
yeah,
kids, it's or
like
whatever, just has been through an experience where you feel deeply responsible for another person
mhm.
at all. That whether that be your brother, your sister, your wife, your family, it doesn't
Oh yeah, yeah,
matter.
yeah.
But I think unless you're like a sociopath or some shit, everyone has had an experience where it's like, I don't know why, but I feel very strongly I need to go home or call this person or check on
Yeah.
them or whatever the fuck. And then it's like you call them and it's like, what's going on? And they tell you. And it's like, oh my
Yeah,
God,
yeah, yeah.
I knew that you needed me. And it's like,
Yeah.
is that a coincidence or is that an innate sense that we have that we don't acknowledge?
Yeah, I just remember what another experience I told you about earlier in the other podcast.
Mhm.
Um, so when I mentioned, having children, like the first time I saw my daughter, she was born extremely prematurely, like 28 weeks, 5 days, weighed less than a kilogram, or like a bag of sugar or
Is
flour.
this Lika?
Lotte, yeah,
Lotta. Okay.
Lotte,
She's the
the
older girl.
oldest, yeah, yeah, yeah,
She's so
and
adorable, man. You have
for sure, yeah, yeah, yeah.
really beautiful family. I can't wait till I have
Thanks.
my own. Trust me.
Yeah, 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 for sure, for sure. Um, I would definitely try and come visit and admire the tilings, the Thai spawn. But seeing my daughter for the first time, even though she was barely a baby because she was so extremely tiny, um, she was like smaller than your headset, probably lighter as well. And I saw her feet, and her feet were my feet, but they were not attached to me, but they were my feet. Like I recognized it as my own, even though it was externally from me. That was super strange to experience. But since she was in this incubator, I think that's the word, right? Where you put the baby into kind of bake them off until they're ready.
Is it like a blue light sort of thing? Or
No, it's like a baby. I'm not sure if it's
so my,
called.
my baby brother Zachary was born a little bit prematurely and he had to be put into an incubator, but it was I
Yeah,
remember I was really young, but I mean he was under blue light and I remember
yeah,
telling my
yeah.
mom like he's a
Against the
smurf.
Billy Rubin.
Mama, he's a
Yeah,
smurf.
yeah. Nice.
Which
Yeah, it's
ironically is like Smurfs are homunculi, which are like babies born in petri dishes, essentially, not through sexual
oh,
intercourse.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And so, like that, it's like a weird long term metaphor that's
Yeah.
actually kind of true. But
I love your
yeah.
serious take on the Smurfs as well, by the way.
Oh
But,
no, that's Cat Williams. I have to give credit to
it
where credit's due. Cat
oh,
Williams
yeah,
is the
yeah,
person
yeah.
who educated me on the Smurfs are
Smurfs.
a metaphor for homunculus.
Yeah, yeah,
And
I
it
heard
makes
that as
perfect
well.
sense.
I
Yeah.
think we listened to the same podcast.
Mhm.
So, she was in this incubator, which is kind of like a greenhouse specifically for babies to help
Mhm.
them basically ripen up. And Lotte got the blue light as well. It's to support liver function, I think. So you break
Mhm.
down certain chemicals in the bloodstream by UV light. Super cool. Like yay, medical science. Otherwise, she would not have had a chance. Um, but at some point, oh yeah, like we kind of got into a routine. We were really drilled by the nurses on the intensive care of the neonatal ward, and every time before we had to leave the ward, I would put my hand on her. You would have to sterilize your hands and everything. Put my hand on her chest and just repeat this mantra like, "You're doing well. Just take your time to grow and eat and sleep and dream. And we're proud of you. We love you." And just repeat that a couple times mentally. And just our presence, my hand on her, and positive thoughts, I think, you could see her values on the displays normalize. Like her saturation would go up, her heart rate would go down, and her movement levels would lower a bit. So you could see her calming down, like her telemetry, like a racing car. And at some point, fast forward a couple weeks, we had to leave in a relative rush because the kitchen at the hospital was closing and we still needed to have dinner. So I put my hand on top of the incubator, so not inside it but on top. I would repeat the mantra, zero values normalized, and thought, hey, this is kind of wacky. So the next day, I told my wife, like, "Hey, look at this," and I did the same thing, and you could see her values normalize. Then at some, and my wife's like, "Whoa, this is pretty weird." And then we tried it in the airlock, like which is between the hallway and the ward, and I saw that she was uncomfortable. The light above her bed was, signaling yellow. Um, and I started mentally repeating the mantra, thinking about having my hand on her, and you could see the values normalize. And I was like, holy shit, this is something. Like, this is repeatable. This is not bound to any distance. There is a connection. Like, I'm thinking, I'm sending positivity, and it seems to hit right. And we could even do it outside the hallway, like behind the airlock, where I could think about my daughter, repeat the mantra, and it's a very intense period where you have these bottled up emotions. You feel very strongly about your own child, especially if they're vulnerable. So all those things factoring in, plus the intent, I'm not sure if like the effects were measurable. The effect of my intention, I suppose. The intention itself, no idea how you would measure something like that, but there is something going on there, and that kind of opened my mind more. Even though I was pretty open minded before going in, I think. But I think probably people's minds are never open enough because you have this image of reality. Yeah, you have this. Yeah, everybody's looking through their filter, and it will be super interesting if we're able at some day to kind of disable or temporarily like shut down your filter, where reality filters in through your preconceptions, through your experiences. It's how you shape how you perceive the world, right? It's not the world as is. I think we have barely any notion of absolute reality. I think we can only experience things secondhand, right? Right.
We clearly only at best, and I mean at best, interpret reality in 4 dimensions when there are actually way more. Like,
Probably, yeah.
that's the best way I know how to put it is that, like, so for anybody who's just listening or whatever, I was pointing at my forehead when as he was speaking,
Yeah,
like, at
third eye.
the third eye concept. But it's like, we exist in, linear, two-dimensional, like, so geometric shapes, uh, three-dimensional shapes, and time, and that's about as far as the human mind can go. That, like,
Well, I think you can think about choices you would have taken differently. I think choice might be in a dimension of its own. Like if you
sure.
have a four-dimensional human being, you will have like you are now a slice somewhere in your life. I hope at the start. Um, then at the start of your organism in four dimensions would be a baby just being born, and at the end would be an old man, super super duper old, surrounded by beautiful ladies in a hot tub or something like that. But so you are a kind of like a worm or a caterpillar or whatever. But a 5D version would be if you branch off. Every major choice is a big branch, and then you have smaller choices you make afterwards is a smaller branch. So humans if choice were a dimension, humans would look like trees pretty much. Some branches would die off early because you decided to go bungee jumping and forgot to tie the cord or whatever. Some branches are super dumb because whatever. Um, so, do you know what a Lichtenberg figure is?
Mm-mm.
It's a form of fractal that looks like a branch. Like if you look up particle accelerator fractal, so there's this person who had these plexiglass blocks, and they charge it in a particle accelerator, so it becomes supercharged, and then they whack it with a live hammer, like you see in your car, and it discharges and forms this tree structure inside this
Yeah,
crystal-like matrix.
yeah.
I think that's uh, could be a representation of a life of a person, where
Well,
we're
like
just fractals inside a crystal, pretty much.
a lot of people are prone to kind of thinking that trees are not conscious or that they don't, you know, they're not.
Yeah, they
Well,
lack
so they just
facial muscles, pretty
they
much.
just exist in a longer form of time than we do.
Yeah.
So, like, a tree grows, it changes, it moves, it expresses. It
Yeah,
just
but they
does it.
also think they're aware of danger. Like,
Right.
there's a reason giraffes eat downwind,
Yeah.
because if the trees, they discover pheromones of other trees that have been gnawed on, they will increase their tannin levels in the leaves. They will try to make themselves unpalatable for giraffes if they're aware of predators. Like how it like that for me that counts as conscious.
It's ironic that we use the word, you use the word predator. We like, but typically the word for a giraffe would be an herbivore,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
which is not a
True.
predator. Somehow, if you
Well,
eat plants
yeah,
only, you're not a predator. Like, if you're a
yeah. I
vegetarian,
think
you're sinless. You didn't hurt anybody. And I'm like,
I
that's
think the only life that might not be a predator is lichen, because they can live on rocks with just
Mhm,
rock minerals and water.
mhm.
But like there's this theory that everything has a degree of sentience. So then even lichen would be a predator. Like life lives on life. Like we need life to live. It sounds super stupid, but you
In
need
a way,
organisms to
we're
feed
all
yourself.
vampires. Everyone is a vampire.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And
Um,
ironically, our biggest source of food is also our garlic, like the sun.
but the sun is it's interesting.
You
Actually
can you
have
can get hurt. You can get hurt by it as
I
well.
don't know if you
Oh,
can
yeah,
see
that's
that,
nice.
but
Is that like
my
a UV monitor?
oh no, it's me and my girl have these bracelets that like light up and uh
Oh, cool.
vibrate when you tap them or whatever. But we have the sun and the moon, and it's
Oh, nice.
because specifically because of the pattern of the tides between the two. It's like one could not like Earth could not exist without the actions of both.
Yeah, yeah, true.
So like I always try to
Oh,
think
that's
about things
lovely.
in those terms of like
Yeah.
you you need both. There has to be
Yeah, you
balance.
are the master of why not both. You taught me that a lot of things in life are false dichotomies.
Dude, I hate that I had to be the person to teach you that because honestly, my business partner, Gelmo, is the one who like really drilled that home for me.
Mhm.
But I always think about things in terms of like when someone has a disagreement, and I think that's because I was like a
Yeah.
middle child. Maybe I was a mediator. I had parents who fought a lot, whatever.
Ah, yeah.
But I always see things from both perspectives, and then like, the people will be like,
Yeah.
"It's this or it's that," and I'm like,
Things are
"It's
rarely
more
mutually
likely
exclusive.
it's
Yeah.
way more likely that both are true or neither are true than one or the other is true.
That is what Russell
Br-
Targ says as well, the fourth way.
Bring your best fucking mathematician.
Yeah.
Bring it. I
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I doubt it. I doubt you can
I
disprove
suck
that.
at math though. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's fascinating, it's fascinating. I kinda lost my train of thought though.
So, just to kind of get back onto like where we were going.
Spirituality.
Well, dreaming, like lucid dreaming
Oh,
and
yeah,
remote
yeah, yeah.
viewing are were two things that I really wanted to like dive kind
Yeah.
of deeper into. So,
It's so much fun. Like,
I,
recently, I'm not sure if I told, like, I had this extremely lucid dream of like, I was alone there as a tourist, pretty much in, it's like a more hilly version of Aalborg. Like, if you have the level of Aalborg and you would scale it up in the Z-axis, that. So,
Switzerland,
I yeah, but still close to the coast, winding roads. So I could see cars driving in the distance. I rarely see cars driving in the distance when I'm dreaming.
California,
So no, it
Chile,
was Scandinavia for
Portugal.
sure. And I was standing there, and I could really like, I have these Puma shoes which have like the kind of like soccer knobs on the bottom, like
Mhm.
a lot of rows of knobs, and I stood there looking at the view. I could feel the wind, and I could see the cars driving, and I felt good, like I felt like a tourist exploring, which is one of my favorite things. Whenever I find I'm lucid dreaming, I just go out and explore whatever's there already. Um, I not tend to mess a lot with my surroundings when dreaming, but I could really feel the knobs of my shoes gripping the asphalt. It was like this tarmac path or something like that. I'm standing on like a asphalt path, but then they put gravel on top or seashells, so they kind of pressed in, so it doesn't look like a road, but it is asphalty, and I could wiggle my toes and feet and feel those knobs grabbing the surface of the floor, and that was the most lucid I think I've ever been in a dream. Like, oh, total body awareness, which is a new level, I think, in my journey.
Did you consciously teach yourself to lucid dream, or was it
I
something that kind of happened
I
naturally, or
kind of
maybe
found I
both?
found out. I was like, I think the first thing I had was an interest. Like I read about what's it called? Like go out of body experiences. I read about that, and I was super interested in that. And I think the interest helped me make note of things that were unusual or considered impossible, like when having a lucid dream. And I was super nearsighted as a kid. I got LASIK a couple of years ago, which is the best thing I did in my life, I suppose, aside from a lot of pain at first. But I can see like better than I ever thought I would ever be able to. But having glasses and being super nearsighted, whenever I did not have my glasses on, the world was blurry. Like if you're underwater and open your eyes. And so if I see sharp without my glasses on, I'm dreaming. And so it is super easy for me to recognize, like, hey, I'm in a dream. So that really lowered the threshold and that opened up the freedom to kind of explore and mess with it. Um, and I think in my childhood, I did it pretty much all the time. And I might even had a few experiences that you could consider out of body experiences, like
Wait,
flying around town.
hold on. I just want to
Sure.
make sure I understand this.
Yeah.
So you dreamed with basically like 20/20 vision, though
Yeah.
your eyes
Always.
themselves are not perfect vision.
Yeah. I think
So
dreams are a function of your consciousness, not necessarily your body.
I understand that, but like I just want to delineate between.
Sure.
So if your reality like is just blurred vision,
Yeah.
like less than what
Well,
I
yeah.
perceive vision was, because I'm
You would
I'm
think
colorblind.
how,
Like,
right?
so I have this whole issue with like people tell me about colors and oh look how beautiful this is. I'm like I don't fucking know what you're talking about. Um,
Nice.
or even with game testing, it's like a lot of times it's like
Yeah.
I don't know which goal I'm supposed to kick the soccer ball into because it's color.
Remember Ish from Pimp My Ride?
Yes,
He was colorblind as well.
yeah. Um, that's a funny little tidbit.
Yeah.
But the point is, so if you're dreaming in 20/20 vision, do you only know what that looks like because at some point you wore glasses or contacts? Or do you recognize that this is true vision versus what I'm limited to in my day-to-day life?
Yeah.
How do you know the difference? How do you know
True.
what is reality? Like, how do I know that the reality of colors that I see is not real while other people are seeing a bunch of shit that's not real? They're just
Why
hallucinating.
not? Why
For
not
all I know,
both?
they're hallucinating.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So, I think as a kid, my eyes were fine, but then as I spent so much time reading, and then when you are growing as a kid and reading, so looking up close all the time, your eyes tend to accommodate, so they kind of grow elongated to be able to focus better on books. And I was an avid rock and mineral collector as well, so I was looking up close to most of the stuff. So at some point, my eyes started degrading, but I think I had an experience of being close to 20/20 vision, even though at some point I got glasses. But it would have been super cool if I was blind and able to dream like in 20/20 vision for sure. But that wasn't my case. Um, I just found out that I was dreaming often. Um, and I found that so cool and liberating because I was, I guess, pretty limited in my freedom and freedom of expression, freedom of many things in my childhood. So when you realize at some point, like, hey, I can see clearly, I have total freedom. That's super exciting, and it made an impression on me and made me want to do that more often, I suppose. And I love this Bob Ross quote where he says like, talent is a pursued interest. So just because I pursued it, I became adept at it. Um, so that's kind of how I grew. And then at some point, like in my 20s, I didn't have it a lot until I left the army. And then a lot of childhood stuff came bubbling up, I guess, because I had the capacity to deal with that stuff instead of being, distracted by my military life in certain ways. I do think that whatever comes bubbling up does so because you're ready to deal with it. Um, and it might not be an opportune moment. It might not be the best moment. It might not be something that you're actually, wanting to deal with, but it's an opportunity. And I tackled that opportunity kind of involuntarily by, realizing like, hey, I'm in a nightmare. And actually, interesting thing is, like my stepfather from my childhood. I don't even want to call him that, but that was what he was technically. Very, very bad man, which is an understatement. But at some point, he jumped in front of a train, and I feel sorry for the train driver. But there's a certain ironic elegance about someone being such a horrible person and then filtering themselves out of reality. Might be a bit cynical or dark, but that's kind of how I thought about it. But then having those nightmares and having the realization, like, hey, you're dead. Why are you here? What are you trying to do? Why are you here? Go away. Um, that really reinvigorated kind of like my interest in dreaming, but also the frequency of remembering it. And that's when I started writing that stuff down because I thought like, hey, this is something I'm obviously dealing with in my subconscious. So um, it's best to keep a finger on the pulse, so to speak, of what's going on. And if there's something I need to do something with.
I think that a large part of it, I think that there's a strong correlation, if not a complete connection between remote viewing, astral projection, and lucid dreaming. Like I think that they're all kind of the same thing. I
Yeah.
can't prove it. I don't have any
No, I
evidence
think
other than
I
like
think there's this
listening
Venn
and looking
diagram.
into it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but like certainly there seems to be an overlap between the experience or even hallucination, like for people who are like experimenting with like psychedelics or whatever the fuck. It's like
I
you're
think so. Yeah.
accessing a part of your consciousness when you're dreaming, and especially when you're in control of your dream or when you're projecting yourself into the outer world. Like part of me almost wants to say that dreaming is in fact just existing in an astral plane. Like you're still alive. Your
Yeah.
consciousness is just not in your body necessarily.
Yeah, I
Um,
agree with that.
yeah.
It's quite literally a different plane of existence. You exist, you're conscious, but you're also your consciousness is not at that time embedded in physical reality. It seems, at least it might there might still be an attachment because you wake up from your dream, so there's a place you go back to. Maybe you're not entirely separate from it as well, but it's definitely an alternate mode of existence, and I kind of at some point I thought of it. I'm not sure if I think about it the same way still, but I kind of thought of it as like conceptual space. Like it's the space where thoughts can become things and ideas can become interactable and interactive and explorable in a very visceral, grounded way. But also, you can go completely out there or find yourself completely out there. And that was one of the coolest things I had actually at some point where. Um, After one of the coaching sessions with Susan, I had this dream. Like I woke up in the dream. Like, kind of, it sounds weird, but that's kind of how I experience it. Like, hey, I'm dreaming, um, and I I rarely dream that I'm anything other than me, like resembling my physical body as well. But this time I was this big, massive, 20-meter wide, 50-meter tall, whatever dragon, big red dragon, and I could flap my wings like really forcefully and feel the wind through like the skin on the wings, and feel myself lifting up and flapping harder, lifting up and soaring over like these azure blue waters with like these islands or cliffy islands in there with a bit of grass on top, and really soaring and feeling like that ultimate strength and freedom, something I've never felt before. And I think that might have been triggered by like the liberation of stress and stuff that I was carrying for years. But it really felt like a milestone in like my mental development at some way.
No,
And I haven't been able to recapture that, but it is something to aspire to, like that feeling of freedom and strength.
I really strongly feel that a lot of what we experience in our dreams is there's a Greek word for this. It's like there's a word that's like the study of what dreams means. I can't remember what the fuck it's called.
Oneironaut, like
Maybe
someone who explores dreams.
oneirology. Maybe might be the word.
Mm,
If I'm
could
pronouncing it
be.
wrong, I'm sure some Greek person will, correct
Yeah.
us. The point is, I got really into, especially in the past like year, to be honest, into divining dreams. Like if someone tells me
Oh,
what they
nice.
dreamed about, I want to understand what the symbols mean. And
Yeah.
that's another big part of why I got really into tarot is
Nice
because
bridge. Yeah.
thank you. But the symbols mean something, and they mean something seemingly universally to all people. Like a
Yeah.
tower.
Archetypes, like Carl Jung.
Yeah, exactly. Man, we could go so deep on Carl. We have to have a whole separate podcast on like just Carl Jung and Aleister Crowley alone.
Oh,
Uh,
yeah.
but like, so for instance, there's this tarot card, the Tower.
Yeah.
Earlier you mentioned going to Babylon, which is somewhere I've always wanted to go. And
Tower
I
of
just
Babel. Yeah.
the Tower of Babel, the whole myth of the Tower of Babel is basically like people had become arrogant. They were trying to build a tower to reach heaven. It's a metaphorical tower, in my opinion, whatever. Uh, and then they were punished, and then that's why we all have to speak different languages
Yeah.
because it
Yeah.
was like an attempt to keep everybody from cooperating so that they couldn't do that again. And I remember must have been 2016. I was in Monterey, California. I was at the Defense Language Institute, and I was studying Iraqi Arabic, and I was struggling. I was like, I knew I was going to fail out of the course. Like there was no chance I was ever going to be a fucking, real military linguist, at least not in this language. And I was distraught, but I still had to go
Yeah.
to class because there's no getting out of it. Right. It's like you wake up every day, you go to work, period. That's the
Yeah.
military.
Yeah.
Um, and because we're studying Iraq and our textbook comes up a whole chapter on the Tower of Babylon or Babel, if you prefer,
Yeah.
which is why, by the way, that's why the app is called Babel, people. It's because you babble when you say nonsense, and
Yeah.
also,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, all right,
The
yeah,
Babel
yeah,
fish.
yeah, yeah. So anyway, I have this like really intense moment staring at this page with the picture of what's now called the Tower of Babylon in Babel, Iraq. And I'm so angry. I'm like, my life was very miserable at this point. Like I was in an unhappy relationship. I was like in a new place. I just joined the military. I was trying to get through this fucking school that I was struggling through. And the whole thing is I I need to learn this language so that I can be an effective warfighter. I can do my mission. And the reason why I have to learn any language other than the language that I speak natively is because of this fucking tower that these fucking assholes
Yeah.
2
Yeah.
or 3,000 years ago or whatever it was tried to build so that they could fucking reach heaven. And now we all have to have different languages, and I have to speak with all these different people from all these different cultures. It's like at one point, at least mythologically speaking, humanity was all unified, like, or at least enough
Yeah.
of humanity was unified so that we could get shit done.
Yeah.
If
Yeah.
the Tower of Babylon was a rocket ship to Mars, we're doing that right now. So
Yeah.
when is the lightning bolt going to strike Elon Musk? I don't know.
I hope not. Yeah.
But that's one of the cards. That's like one of the most sacred passed down for generations. Not specifically talking about like the Rider Tarot or whatever. I just mean
Mhm.
the symbol of humanity should not build towers to heaven. And then being
Yeah, it's
punished for that
interesting.
is it's so ingrained
Y
in
you
our
can get so
DNA.
much out of it. Yeah, you
Of
can get so
course.
much out of it as well, like be
Yeah.
modest but, like, I have an interesting, I think at least, anecdote about tarot. Like, one of the interns, at the Navy, um, he came with, Adventure Time tarot cards and, super interesting. So, he said, "You want me to lay out the tarot for you?" I'm like, "Sure, never done it before, so it should work out." And, I think when I grabbed the pile, 3 cards fell, and I said, let's stick with those because those are my cards, you know, they fell. Obviously, I need to get those." And, I'm not sure what they were from that first session anymore,
The
but,
devil, death,
no,
and the
they felt
tower.
they felt pretty spot on. I think it was a bit about, um things are going well financially, you're working on emotional development, and but also be wary of that.
Mhm.
And I thought, yeah, this is pretty broad, so a lot of people could probably recognize themselves in there. And then at some point, I did another set, and what we would do is take an image. So we would get the orientation of the cards, like if they're upside down or not, the cards themselves with the names and archetypes on there. And just for fun, I would slap that in Chat GPT and I said, like, you have all the literature on tarot that there is. So how would I interpret these? And out came these detailed reports with ways to interpret it. And there was this kind of red line in there where you would think, yeah, it kind of makes sense. And at some point, I put like 3 or 4 cards, and, one of them was like financial turmoil, like you should definitely be super frugal, harsh times ahead, financially. And then, yeah, business is, like, tough in business and a bit, like, easy, how to say it? Like a short fuse emotionally, and then more financial, or at least, a lack of, prosperity. So, I thought, "Sheesh, what's this gonna do?" So I got home, like there's these 3 blue letters in my mailbox, from the IRS, equivalent in the Netherlands. So I opened them, and it's like, I had a pretty good year in 2022, 2023 when I was working with
What's it
Meta.
called in the Netherlands? Like the scat something?
Belastingdienst, like the, tax service.
Yeah. In Danish, it's called like scat service, which is like literally like treasury in English.
Oh, yeah. Oh, schat.
SK,
Yeah, yeah.
but SKAT meaning
Scat.
treasure. So
Yeah.
you might even use that as like a term of endearment, like hello means
Oh,
scat.
yeah. Yeah, yeah.
I love like my treasure, but it's like
Same in the Netherlands.
it also means taxes,
Interesting.
which is like obviously the two are connected, but like if you think of your loved one
Interesting
as a
duality,
tax, you have to
yeah.
pay. And
It
also
can be taxing.
in English, scat means something completely different. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
which we're not
Uh,
gonna get into on this program.
nah, don't want to step in that one. Um, so I come home. I found those letters from the tax service, and it's like what I would make in my 20s in a year, I would have to pay in taxes. And I'm like, no, because financially I was normalized instead of having those super good years. Um, and then I kind of had to scramble because they had to be paid, yada yada. Um, so I managed. I did a freelancing assignment, and everything kind of fell in place. Which the following tarot kind of mentioned, like things are falling in place, and it's interesting how you can kind of extrapolate those parallels from there. Oh, I'm going to check that out later. But yeah, I do like what I think tarot is. You know the double slit experiment, right?
The double slit experiment.
Yeah, it's where you shine I'm not sure if it's a beam of light or one photon. So you have two slits, one light source. And logically, to see, like, there's this background behind it that receives the light. So I'm probably butchering this, but just bear with me. So the light goes through either one of those slits and it should yield a very specific interference pattern. So you can see through which slit the light went based on the interference pattern. But if you are not directly observing the slit, but just the result, you get a third interference pattern, which is it has not gone through either or both. And you can look that up. It's someone else can explain it way better than I
Yeah.
did. But so you get this interference pattern as if the light went through something other than those slits. So what I think tarot is we have the perceived randomness of existence. We have the perceived randomness of our interpretation, which varies from person to person. But if you find a method to overlay those random patterns through a filter, you can get meaningful information from there. And
I got you.
I think that is what tarot is a way of. If
So do
but yeah, it's hard to grasp or really define in the nitty-gritty because it's kind of like this mix of experience, intuition, and guesswork. But that's kind of my interpretation of how tarot could work.
it's tarot is literally just a language, and instead of being based on only words, it's based
Mhm.
on imagery. But
Much more powerful.
to go back to the whole Star Trek thing, there's this is an entire episode of Star Trek where Captain Picard is like stranded on a planet with this other alien guy, and his entire language is based on myths that only exist on his world.
Yeah, 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 yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And so he's like, everything he says is a reference to something that only he and his ancestors would understand.
It's all metaphors.
And
Yeah,
yet, it's a metaphor for how language really works. Everything that we do actually say does fall into that category. We just don't realize it because we have an
yeah,
agreed upon meaning between us.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
You and I are speaking English. It's not even your native language, and it's barely mine because
True.
I speak redneck. And like,
Alabama.
yeah. But I just mean there's something to that. It's like everything linguistically is based on an agreed upon understanding of something else that happened
Yeah,
before us. And so
yeah.
if you
That,
were to make
that's
up a new word, like if you and I were to make up like the word uh fleagle right now, which I don't think
legal.
exists in Dutch or English, and I say it means this microphone.
Yeah,
The only reason why fleagle is going to mean anything to us for the rest of our lives is because I said it means microphone.
we agreed upon it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. Um, but the symbols in tarot go all the way back to Egypt. Like like tarot itself comes, of course, from Italy, which is at the time probably like Rome or like post Rome
It's
Italy.
I think it's the
Um,
archetypes of the mind. And
I agree with you. I
Ingo
agree.
Swan is a super interesting diagram. It's almost like an hourglass shape where you have your unconscious, then you have whatever information it's trying to feed through your filter, and your filter is your experiences, your interpretations. Sorry for hitting the mic. Um, so you how to say it, your subconscious works in images, and it's hard to interpret those because if you try to convert images into words so that you can rationalize them, you might as well attach different synonyms, meanings, things to it. So it, instead of clarifying a message, it's obfuscating a message. And that's why drawing, like the act of drawing from remote viewing, is a more direct way to link into your subconscious and try and extract information from it. Because I don't think like the way lucid dreaming is putting yourself in this dream world and interacting, and it's basically stuff that you put out. Whereas in my extremely limited experience, but I read a lot about free remote viewing in theory, is that you're not actually putting something out there. It's something. It's more akin like pulling something in.
It was a big jump for me because I remember it was maybe a few weeks ago, maybe a month, I don't remember, but I was asking you about your experience with remote viewing. I've never done
Yeah,
anything like that. I've definitely had what I would call lucid dreams from time to time. I don't feel like I'm as in control as you describe yourself being of them. Typically, it's like, for instance, I'll have like a dream where it's like everyone's trying to drag me down and I try to fly away and I
yeah,
fly, but then they drag me back down. Like I don't feel like I'm
oh
fully in
yeah, yeah.
control. Um,
Yeah.
but I feel like it's like
It
a
takes, like
yeah.
everything, it takes practice pretty much. Like doing is learning.
But I remember when you were first telling me about your experience with remote viewing and everything, and it's like it's not something that I had ever been open minded to at all. Like none of this stuff, like anything
Yeah.
esoteric or paranormal, I was like, if you can't fucking show me the math, I don't care. Like it's
Super
not real.
interesting, isn't it? Like,
If
yeah,
you
but
can't prove it, I don't believe in it. And that's such a stupid adolescent way of viewing the world. I
super hypocritical, like to
It's
the
like
extreme.
if you can't prove it, it's not real is like such an oxymoron to
But
say.
you have never experienced light, or you have never experienced touch. You have only experienced your interpretation of
It
your
would be
mechanical
like if you
senses.
were Helen Keller and you said that sight doesn't exist.
Yeah,
Or
yeah,
if
yeah.
you're
I suppose.
blind and you say that like people don't see because I don't see.
Yeah.
That's
Whenever
so
I'm
dumb.
yeah,
No pun
whenever
intended.
I'm
Nope, sorry,
noticing,
Helen
yeah,
Keller.
yeah.
Like
She might not hear you, but um, like whenever I notice that I'm closing myself off to someone, or feeling like experiencing myself being closed minded, I think a lot about how I think. Um, and so whenever I notice that, I might be closed minded on this, I should be more open. I try to, envision like what would the actual reality be that I'm inside right now. Like there is no light. I'm only perceiving electrical signals. There is no touch really, because pretty much it's all empty space. And the fact that I, perceive objects as being solid is because, forces acting upon stuff. But pretty much it's all darkness. We're floating in darkness. That's I guess the ultimate reality. So, what is it that we are experiencing?
so the thing that like I guess I became more open minded from meeting you, from meeting different people, listening to people's stories and stuff. Like I became more open minded to the idea of remote viewing and other paranormal things, of course, throughout time. But one of the things that really hit me, and I almost sent it to you, but I didn't. I feel like I always like I'm just throwing links at you, and there's no way you
Oh,
can
but
listen to
I
all of
I
these.
I love that.
Yeah.
Just keep throwing it at me. It's
Um.
good to have a backlog in the worst case.
So there's an episode of Coast to Coast AM. Art Bell is just like in real. It's like on September 11th, 2001, like the day of, you know, and of course it's a radio show. He's going to respond to what's going on in the world, and like there's
Yeah, yeah.
people
How could he
calling in,
not?
share their stories. It's like a week long thing, and I listened to all of it. I was like
Yeah,
every fucking second of that whole broadcast for days. I actually listened to it, 3 or 4 hours a day, whatever it was,
yeah.
and there's this moment where he is talking to one of his friends who's like a military remote viewer,
Oh wow.
who calls into the show to say like, I just want to say this on the air once. Like I know it's probably not going to mean anything. It's not going to have any like real tangible action in the world, but I want people to know that this is what we as a remote viewing company saw.
Yeah.
And on September 11th, this guy calls into a radio show and he says, we as the remote viewers have already determined that this attack came from a cave in this city near Kabul in Afghanistan.
Sorry.
And I'm like, how the fuck do you know that? How do you know that Saddam Hussein and what was
Bin
his name? Oh my,
Laden. Yeah.
Osama bin Laden being the Afghani, not really Afghani. He's actually Saudi Arabian, but you know, he said, I don't know anything about what's going on. I know that the order to do this came from this cave near Kabul in Afghanistan, and that's what led us to Osama bin Laden.
I
And
mean, even
that is so fucking insane. Like, how could they know that if not for some sort of, and I'm open to anybody listening to this, like,
yeah,
present
yeah.
me with other ideas. I'm sure that there's like maybe there was other intelligence that he was aware of. I don't know. I just mean
I
that's what made me open minded to the
yeah.
concept.
Yeah, yeah. That's great. Like I'm I always enjoy playing devil's advocate. So let's dive in. So I'd say that for all we know, There could have been a leak that got played through. Like any organization could have been infiltrated. There's a plethora of ways of getting the information out there through something obscure like that, and then the occultist view could be, you know, they have to always come clean and predictive programming, yada yada. But even if it was just a leak by Afghan intelligence wanting to, you know, throw it out there and see what happens, then still it sparked interest ideas. It was an actionable lead. Um, so no idea about the intent of everyone involved, but it's interesting for sure. And that's like the devil's advocate approach, I guess. But there are organizations that train people in remote viewing. They do it for stock markets and whatnot. I have no idea about the track record or validity or things like that. I just find it interesting, but I haven't like signed up for something like that yet. I might if I get some more sessions in and convince myself like, hey, this is actually something I can do.
See,
Um,
as a military remote viewer kind of guy, like the way that you view exactly how you just said it, where it's like I don't know
yeah,
what the real truth is, but I haven't dived into it. I'm curious.
yeah,
So I was talking about tarot earlier and like of these like sacred symbols and everything, and you're talking about remote viewing, obviously. But I feel exactly the same that you do about like joining an organization like that as I do about like the Masonic Lodge. Like I would really
yeah.
like to know what they're doing, but I
Yeah,
also
I'm
know
super
that I can't
super
talk about it.
skeptical. Yeah, I'm also super skeptical and kind of nervous about Freemason stuff. It's more of like there's this public image, and I don't know much about it other than
We
who
gotta get
spooky.
Johan on with us both.
Is he in there?
I don't think he's a Mason, but he definitely knows a lot of symbolism because as you and I and he were walking through town,
Yeah.
or even when I was in the Netherlands, and like there was
Oh,
a day
like
when he,
building facades and stuff like that.
yeah, just like little
Yeah, but
symbols that you don't notice are on a typical building,
interesting.
and he would point them out and be
Yeah,
like, "That's a Mason symbol. That's a." I
yeah,
don't
true,
know if
true,
that
true.
means I don't know if he's a Mason or not, but
Oh,
it
but
doesn't
if you
matter.
ever
He
go
probably
to
can't
if
tell
you
us if he
ever
is.
if you ever go to well, he might be able to tell if he is, but I don't know, but I don't. He doesn't strike me as a Mason, but on the other hand, I don't know any, so who knows? But if you go to Brussels in Belgium, for example, there's like so much iconography. Why I don't know, but it seems like it was the Mason capital, I guess, at some point. Just going at it by it visually, because it's embedded in the architecture. So if you grow up in Europe, you do kind of see that stuff pretty much all over the place. So there is this baseline of recognizing it that might be slightly higher as opposed to someone, you know, living, for example, in New York where there's only new buildings. But to get back to my point, uh, ever since I heard that like Randall Carson, you probably know who
Big
he
fan,
is.
big fan.
Yeah, same here, same here. Since he
Cosmographia. Check out Cosmographia, folks.
but since I heard that he is a Mason, I kind of I would say that it um took away a bit of the spookiness because he seems like a very reasonable, even amicable guy who knows what he's talking about. He's a passionate person who cares greatly about what he does, and how he conveys that information that you know he's throwing out there about archaeology, stuff like that, geology, I should say. Um, so that kind of removed a bit of the mental stigma I had put on it. But yeah, I don't know. I know too little about it, and um,
He's
yeah,
actually Randall Carlson is actually cited in this book as a geologist.
yeah,
When they're talking about the Younger Dryas impact and his theories on that, because he
super
and
fascinating.
Randall Carlson and oh my goodness, the British guy Graham Hancock did all that
Yeah,
extensive research on the American West and the Great Basin, and
yeah.
how like
There's
obviously there was a flood that
there's gonna be a
carved out.
season 2 for um, Ancient Apocalypse on
Mhm.
Netflix.
Yeah, very good series.
Yeah, yeah. Looking forward to seeing it. My wife loved it as well. It's just super interesting, well put together. easy to understand, and like I'm super interested in that stuff. Like, well, UPARTs, you know the term, right? Ancient. Well, no, what is it? UPART, out of place artifacts. There's this book called Forbidden Archaeology by Michael Cremo, and it's a book as thick as my fist. I don't have extremely large hands, but it's a pretty thick book still. Um, and really cool images, like how like a cast iron mortar, like a mortar and pestle to grind stuff, herbs and whatnot, was like found in fossilized coal, stuff like that. It's going to be hard to date and place, but it's super interesting that it's there. And yeah, I always like I was a big X Files fan as a kid. That
I'm
kind of
still a huge X-File. I like it.
oh yeah, yeah, yeah. It
I
might have
like
sparked my fascination, basically.
honestly, I really don't watch television. Like I watch wrestling, obviously, but like
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
otherwise, like as far as series go, I just rewatched the X Files, Twin Peaks,
Star Trek.
and Star Trek,
Yeah,
and that's it. Like I
yeah,
don't,
yeah.
I'm a little ashamed of myself because I know that there's a lot going on,
No, but it's
you know,
super
TV.
comfortable under living under a rock. I'm a big proponent of living under a rock. Like I listen to 80s music, a bit of
Mm.
90s music. Occasionally new stuff slips in, but it's okay to like what you like. You don't have to if you're not, looking for new stuff to like, you don't have to look. Like people have their favorite books, favorite movies. Um, a recent series that I really love, which is like super brutal though, is The Boys. It's a bit gory, so
Yeah, that's
it
the
might not it
Amazon
might not be
series with
yeah,
Homelander, where he's like
yeah.
total acid.
Oh, oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It might not be for everyone, but man, it's like he is such a broken, like his journey is so interesting. You kind of see him mentally break and fall apart and then just lose touch, and
That's a
it's tragic,
very
but
interesting part of modern media is the idea of the anti-hero. I feel like it has always existed, but it became very part of our zeitgeist in the 90s.
yeah,
Like this,
weak weak men create bad times, so we create bad heroes.
but yeah, was it hard men make
Good
soft
times.
times make
Yeah,
soft men make and hard times make hard men.
make hard man. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Uh, no, that's true though. There's a big part of that. But to get back to The Boys, because I actually I think I watched like at least the first 2 seasons of it with
Mhm.
so I was so ignorant that I didn't even like I was arguing with my friend because he was saying that Stormgate or whatever her name is, the red-haired girl,
Stormfront. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Stormfront. He was saying like, "Oh, she's a Nazi," and I'm like, "Dude, I'm only like 2 or 3 episodes in." I'm like, "Why do you think
Yeah,
that?"
yeah.
And he's like, "Her name's literally fucking Stormgate," and I'm like,
Stormfront.
"Stormfront."
Is
And I'm
that a
like,
Nazi thing?
"Why would I know that? Like, why would I know that?"
I know stormtroopers.
No,
They're like,
Stormfront is like you can Google it right now. Anybody who's listening to this, if you want to, it's basically a white supremacist website.
oh,
So she's
we do
named
have like
Stormfront after that.
it's tempting to dive into politics, but I won't. But
We won't. We won't. We're not gonna.
there's a recycling of slogans going on.
I'm just saying. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's like there's a pattern in that show that I didn't recognize. I was just ignorant. I wasn't even aware. But I was
yeah.
saying like, why do you assume that she's like some kind of fucking neo-Nazi? Like she seems like a perfectly fine character in the world, and then if you get through the second season, it's like, oh, she sucks.
I wonder if she was actually like Homelander's mom. I know Homelander was like this lab grown uh baby.
I have
I
not read
think
the comic book series that the show is based on. I really
me
don't know.
me neither, but it would be like an interesting, like, you heard of the myth of Oedipus, perhaps. I
Oedipus.
think it Oedipus, yeah, yeah. So
Yeah.
if Stormfront turns out to be Homelander's mom, which chronologically would be possible, like I really love how we're nerding out about a comic right now.
Dude,
But
it's so funny that you bring up Oedipus because I was just reading this book about Oedipus right here.
nice. Yeah, yeah, it's interesting. And
No, it's
Narcissus is an interesting one as well. Have you read the
Narcissus is
Iliad
the
and Odyssey?
so I'm not gonna act like I've read Homer's Iliad and Odyssey. I was in a play of the Trojan War when I was
Oh, nice.
maybe I don't know 8 or 9 years old or something like that. So I know this. I know the myth. I know the story.
Yeah,
I've
yeah,
not
yeah.
read the source material. I plan
Yeah.
to because the
It's a
third
good
book in
read,
this
it's a good
series is
read.
called. For anyone listening to this, I'm holding up Stephen Fry's Heroes, but the third book is Troy, and it's all
Oh,
about
nice. I
the
love
empire of
that
Troy.
movie, by the way, as well. I heard it's somewhat, historically accurate,
The
but,
movie Troy with Brad Pitt, it's quite good.
yeah,
Brad
yeah,
Pitt
yeah.
plays Achilles.
Achilles and,
Yeah,
what's the other guy's name? He played the Hulk as well, I think,
Mark
Australian
Ruffalo
guy. No, 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 before,
played the
No, um,
played the
yeah.
Hulk.
Yeah, 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 like in before the
So
Avengers,
I mean,
reboot,
there was the guy from Fight Club that played the Hulk,
That was Edward Norton.
Edward
Uh,
Norton, but he's not Australian. He's American.
yeah, and he's also not the guy.
No,
Eric Bana.
okay.
Eric Bana, handsome dude. But he played, the Hulk. I like that Hulk movie actually, but I think it also was because like Jennifer Connelly is in there, one of my, childhood crushes. Um, but Eric Bana plays, what's his name again? The
When I think of the Hulk, I think of Lou Ferrigno.
Yeah, yeah, nice.
Yeah,
Was
like
he a
the
wrestler
'80s.
or a bodybuilder?
He was just a bodybuilder. He wasn't a
Oh,
wrestler.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that was really cool. Yeah, I saw that, as a kid on TV as well.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. So
No, 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 I'm just,
Eric Bana
mentally, yeah. He played, the guy defending the prince. I think his brother was the prince or something like that. And, if Achilles wins, then he would have gotten, Helen, but then he just got her anyway. I'm
um
mangling up the story. It's been a while. I actually
do you
saw that in
remember
uniform.
the secretary at Slipgate? The older woman, she's in her 50s with a
The,
blonde hair.
who is also at the reception?
Yes.
Receptionist? Helen?
Helen.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So
Yeah, she was
in
lovely.
Danish, most people who are named Helen of any kind
Yeah,
have like Helene or Llene or whatever the fuck.
yeah.
But she's like the only
Eleanor.
one that I ever met that was named like truly the Greek Helen, like
Yeah.
Helen. And so I walked up to her when I first met her. I was like, "Your name is Helen," and she's like, "Yeah." And I'm like, she's like Helen of Troy, like Helen of Argos, and she goes, "What's that? I don't know what that is."
Ah,
And I was like, "You got
interesting.
your parents named you that, and you have no idea where it came from." She's like, "No."
Yeah, but in
So
her
I gave her a
defense,
copy of Troy. I was like, I
nice,
literally gave her a paperback copy. Is like, put it on her desk. Read that.
nice. Yeah, yeah,
You
yeah.
know, like you're named after this woman who was allegedly so beautiful that two great nations
Yeah,
had to fight a fucking long war over. And right,
yeah,
like the entire mythology, the entire like ethos of what it means to be Greek is based on a
pretty
story that
much,
has to
yeah.
do with your name. And you
Yeah, yeah,
don't know
yeah.
any of that. And she was like, no. So then I go to the next person, which was Mickle, who was like CFO or whatever of the
Oh,
company.
yeah,
And I'm
yeah,
like,
yeah.
hey, bro, uh, you believe Helen doesn't know that her name came from Helen of Troy? And he's like, what's Helen of Troy? And
Wow.
then I go to the
They
next
don't.
person. And I realize that they don't teach Greek mythology in Danish school.
Well, same in
It's like,
Dutch school though, but I was always at the libraries, and so for me, I read everything I could grab basically.
I think that
Um,
like it's a weird thing, but like in America, when we say a classical education, we literally mean a
Greek literature.
classical education. Like,
Yeah, yeah. Like my wife, she had to learn Latin in, school. She
yeah.
was, higher educated than I am. So she actually had to translate bits of it from Greek to Dutch and vice versa. Well, Old Greek and Latin, I think. I always mix those up. But, back to Halen, she was a badass. I remember when we were going to the, theme park with the roller coaster rides, and I think she done them all.
She's coolest, man. I
Yeah,
actually
yeah,
I
yeah.
think she just had her 2-year anniversary at Slipgate as a
Oh,
secretary.
nice.
And
Oh,
I
she's
read
still
her
there.
like a whole
Good to
review
hear.
on LinkedIn. I was like, dude, like Helen, you're the best. Like
You're
the
a champ,
best.
man.
Like when I moved there, I was by myself, I didn't have anybody else with me, and, my
Yeah.
mom and my grandma were, of course, like, really worried about, like, "Oh, no, is it gonna be okay?" And Halen would, like, even get on, like, video chat with my grandmother and my mom and be like, "Hey, like, I'm here, I'm watching after him," and it made them feel
Ah,
better
yeah, that's
knowing,
so
like, an
lovely.
older woman was there watching over me, like, checking on me and that kinda thing.
Yeah, yeah,
She was
yeah.
the literally her and, of all the people I met in my whole Slipgate 3D Realms experience. Her, Halen, and Vini were so good to me. Like, I don't know that I would have survived Denmark had it not been for
Mhm.
those 2 women and their generosity, their caring, their, like,
Yeah.
recognition, especially amongst Danish culture of, like, how people don't express or check in on people, that whole thing, and they were so good to me. Like, I have nothing but absolute respect for them. Um, so I know this is a bit of a jump because we were on mythology, but we can do mythology probably
We
even
can do
more another
all the
time.
tangents. Yeah.
I want to get into this shadow person story that you have.
Oh, wow, yeah, you had me guessing there for a sec. So, I was I think I was, like, 16 or something like that, and I haven't thought about this for quite a while. Last time I thought about it was when, I told you, and I have no idea how we went on that tangent. It was just a weird experience, and so we were,
We were
um
talking about ghosts in general because
yeah,
I had
yeah, yeah.
had like kind of my own experience, but then you told me your story, and then I was like, that's not a ghost, that's a shadow person.
Yeah,
I feel like
I
that's
have
how it
no
would go.
idea what that was, but, so we were living at my aunt's house after things escalated back home again, and my aunt was like she had a rough life, and she was also very spiritual. I'm not sure if she was, like, fake spiritual for being interesting or, like, actually spiritual, convinced of certain things and doing them out of that, view. Um, so I was running up the stairs, and they had these like the stairs were just boards attached to the wall, so you could actually climb through them if you wanted as a kid. Super fun stairs, and they had carpet on top, and instead of a rail, she had her like a thick rope, like from a ship, and it was always my favorite stairs for some reason. So I was climbing up the stairs through the rope, up the other flight of stairs to the second story, and then, there was this, I'm not sure if it was like a folding downstairs or a solid one. I think it was like a standard stairs, up to the attic. And I always jump upstairs. I'm not in a rush or anything. I just don't like stairs. I want to go fast. So I always skip a few steps. So I was boom, 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 boom up the stairs. And above it, like, I took a few steps, and as I was going, I saw, and it was pretty dark. There was maybe some ambient light bouncing from the hallway up into the attic, but it was pretty dark. But I saw this silhouette, the shape of, I think, a man, like almost like a shadow, but it seemed like a volume, right? Like there was almost like a cutout in fog. So
So you didn't see, like, the person's necessarily, like, their physical features and color, you see a black shape.
It's pretty much like a silhouette, or like if you were to have, if your shadow was like a 3D instead of
What
a 2D projection. If your shadow
what
was
was he
3D,
dressed like?
it's just a silhouette. I didn't see any distinguishing features in terms of clothes. It could have been a shadow of a naked person.
No hat,
Um,
no hair, no
Not that I know of.
jacket.
Also, no eyes or whatever. Just a void in the shape of a person. A darker space, the shape
Would
of
you
a
call it
person.
a shadow, like, in terms of, like, it's just darker than everything else around it, or was it
Yeah,
black?
yeah, but it looked like a shadow, but like a volume, like it has 3D depth
Yeah.
and features. So I stepped through it, or him. I think of it as a him. No idea why. Maybe because I'm a him. So I stepped through, and I felt very surprised, and not just my own surprise. It looked like I thought that whatever I did surprised whatever I stepped through as well. And then I looked around and there was just ordinary hallway, no shadow shape or whatever. Um, and I didn't think much of it other than, huh, that was weird. Um, but it's interesting that, like, I haven't experienced anything like that, but afterwards. But if I look at like child development, like around 7, 8 year is when a child's brains start to change and mature to a degree. Like there's a difference before and after. I think they changed the operating brainwave frequency from like theta to delta or something like that. I might be mixing stuff up, but I think at that age changes in the brain happen, and then again around puberty. And puberty is very can be a very tough time for kids. It was for me, because your body's changing, you're changing. It seems the world is changing. Your expectations and expectations of you are changing. So I'm not surprised that that you're more sensitive for things you would otherwise not notice at that age. And I think I was like 17 years or something like that. I was a late teen. Oh, so I was a late in puberty compared to my classmates, and I stepped through the shape of a man. I think who was very, yeah, like a of shadowy volume, and super surprising, like very weird. Not scary or anything, more just surprised. So I went downstairs to my aunt and told her, like, "Hey, I just stepped through a dark shape of a person," and she just kind of freaks out, like, "Oh no, we just cleansed the house and blah blah blah." She would have to like burn sage or something. She
Yeah.
mentioned to purify the house, and I didn't experience the
See,
house as impure or negative or
that
whatever.
won't fix a shadow person. Like, so there's a difference between a spirit who is occupying the space, like who hasn't moved on, and a shadow person, which is I I am not speaking from experience here. I'm speaking from like just sheerly like basically listening to research in my mom because my mother like knows everything about this whole topic. I had to have her on the podcast sometime. But
I'll listen to that for sure.
so my understanding of what you experienced is not that you encountered a spirit that was still there that she needed to cleanse with sage or whatever the fuck. It's more
Yeah,
like you interacted with something that exists in a different dimension, but you
could be.
intersected.
How cool would it be if that was me from the future,
It
remote
could be
viewing?
it could be that. Literally, that would be more
Yeah, yeah,
likely than to say that you need to, like, exercise or to cleanse your home.
yeah, yeah.
Based on the evidence you've given me and what I understand of how this works. This is something
Yeah,
that
but
as
also my
this
lack
new
of
podcast goes on, I'm gonna, like, probably get
yeah,
better
yeah.
and better and better at from learning from people. But, yeah,
But
I
it
don't
was
think that
also
you
my
need to be afraid of what you encountered.
oh,
Just
yeah.
yeah,
I wasn't afraid, I was more surprised. I didn't
yeah.
feel any fear or anxiety or startled, it was just very surprising. But it also kind of illustrates, and at least back then for sure, and now it's a bit broader, but it illustrates basically my lack of vocabulary to describe what I encountered, I guess. And I think ideally, like, how would you uh, prepare people growing up for, like, hey, reality isn't fully charted yet. There might be things that you don't have words for. And here's what we call this, and here's what we call that. And there's little consensus, but these are the
When in
archetypes.
Peru, they called them hiffalops and woozles, right? But
Yeah, yeah,
they
yeah.
they really mean words.
Juggalos. Oh no, fucking
Woozles.
magnets. How do they work? But
Hell yeah. Hell yeah.
um, but yeah, yeah, like there's this lack of vocabulary, and I do think like there's, even if it's an experience that comes from within, like from my imagination or whatever, I really don't think that your body, for example, does anything without purpose, and I don't think your mind does anything without a purpose. Everything has some intent behind it. So whatever I saw or stepped through or experienced, there's probably some deeper meaning to it, even if it comes from within. So yeah. So the devil's advocate version would be a kid with an overactive imagination, but to me it felt very real. Like, I was surprised that I stepped through this void in the shape of a person, and I I I swear I could feel its surprise, as well.
I hate the expression "that's not real" when it's referring to someone's experience. It's like,
Yeah, yeah.
of course,
But
people hallucinate, people have things that happen to them that are,
Mhm.
like, in the objective three-dimensional, maybe four-dimensional
Yeah,
reality that we exist
I
in. It's like,
I could
you did
say
yeah, you saw something that wasn't there. It's
yeah,
like,
but I could also say no longer real because, like, everything you remember is also no longer real. Like, reality has literally changed. Like, if you look back, like, 20 years, 30 years ago, the world's very different. Did it exist? Yes. Is it real? Not really. Technically, maybe bits of it still.
is
So
Julius Caesar real? Did that really happen? Does it matter whether it really happened? Because I think the bigger question is not
we're diving
did
in
it
religion
did it
now. Yeah.
not did it happen, but, like,
What's the story?
what yeah, that's, like, the
Yeah.
best words to put it, like, what is the point?
Yeah. Yeah.
What are we meant to learn from this being recorded? And it's like, there's all this discussion about, like, oh, the Library of Alexandria was burned down, all this ancient
Mhm.
knowledge that we've lost over time. I'm like, okay, there's nothing we can do. It's like the serenity prayer, like the give me serenity to accept the things I can't change, the
Yeah.
courage to
Yeah.
change the things I can, the wisdom to know the difference. It's like, okay, I can't change the fact that the Library of Alexandria was burned down.
That's a
I
cool
can't
remote
change the
viewing
fact that the
target.
Tower of
Yeah.
Babylon was struck by lightning and destroyed. But what I want to know is, why is this a significant event? What's the story? Like that might be the name of the podcast, dude.
That's the
If it's
story.
not already taken. It's probably not.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. Now you mentioned the Tower of Babel. Super weird tangent, I suppose. But as a kid, I had a blast playing Mario Brothers 3, and I remember there was this icon on a map sometimes that looks like the Spiral Tower of Babylon in Mario Brothers
There's
3.
so much. I don't know if it's on purpose or by accident. It's probably by accident, which makes it even like that makes it even more significant to me. If
Yeah,
it's
how do
like
you prove an
someone
archetype?
isolated
Yeah,
came up with the same archetype without knowing the source material. That's even
yeah,
more proof. But I mean, there's so much in just Mario that's universal human language. Like this goes
yeah.
straight back to that
It's
pre-Egyptian
life.
Kim.
You
You know,
struggle, you avoid
yeah,
hazards, you try to, gain riches, get all the coins. You grow as a person, but sometimes you fall down.
yeah, the in tarot it's the pentacles. That's monetary. There's also all there's so many aspects to life.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
dude, you're a
And
really
Mario
beautiful
Brothers
person.
3 was also a play.
Yeah,
It's an interesting moral of the story. Like, we look back to games.
I guess we only have a few minutes left in our scheduled time anyway. We can talk as long as you want to. I'm just like I try to keep it 3 hours is all good.
Palatable, yeah, yeah. Well,
Um,
yeah, let's fill the 3 hours for sure. That's a nice, benchmark, I think.
so
Um,
ultimately, like given your life experience as a father, as a soldier, as a naval personnel who's not called a sailor allegedly, as a remote viewer, as a spiritual
I
person,
feel like a noob in that respect, though.
what do you think is like the best advice you could give to someone who is trying to figure themselves out? And I asked that question because I think I asked you that question personally, and now I'm asking you for
Yeah,
other
yeah.
people.
Man, just try as a broad spectrum of things. Always gauge if it's good or bad for you or others, but try. If you will only find out things if you like doing it, if you try it, if you like eating it, if you try it, if you want that specific career, if you try it. And sometimes an obstacle like talking to someone can feel big, but just try it, you know. That yeah, the first thing that springs to mind right now is just go ahead and try.
Yeah. I think in a different set of words, but like pretty much the same moral for me is I have so many people in my life, and I still I've been open about this the entire time I've been a podcaster, and I'll always be open about it with you. Like I struggle so much with depression and with like self hatred, and I don't I don't want to cry. I just mean like just this idea that I'm not good enough. And
The
then I'm
struggle is
like, the
real, yeah.
people in my life who remind me that life is worth living and that I should continue on are always telling me the same thing, which is basically like, look at what you have accomplished. Like,
Yeah.
how many people from where you're from at your age have been to the places and seen the things that you have? And it's like, when I think about it in those terms, I'm like, I've been, all over Europe. I've been all over America. I'm probably going to have many opportunities in the future to go to Asia, Australia, wherever, South America. Maybe I'll go to Mars in this lifetime. Who fucking
Yeah,
knows,
yeah.
right?
Yeah, who knows, who
Elon's
knows?
working on it for us. But that I get so down on myself for
Yeah.
shit that I
You're
blame myself for in the past. And as you said
but
earlier, like the past is not real.
it's
It's like,
easy to beat yourself up over stuff, but it's just I think it's a part of you inside you that actually is trying to help. Like it's showing you like, "Hey, remember this? We're trying to avoid this." And instead of beating up that kid in yourself, might as well, accept it. Like, "Hey, okay, thanks, but, it'll be more helpful if I put this energy towards a goal instead of, regurgitating or what's the word? Masticate. That comes from a song from Tears for Fears, Seeds of Love, I think. And I listen to that song a lot, and it's about spreading positivity. But you should allow yourself to receive it as well. Like you are worthy. You're worthy as fuck, man. I look up to you, and I see you as like a like how I see many people, but you're a bit more close than that. Like as um, someone like me, we're two sides of the same coin. We might not be the same. We're made of the same stuff, and we're trying our best, and all in our own way. And each has their own. Like maybe I took the windy path, and you took the steeper path. Um, does it make us different? No, it makes our experiences different. But
we're all running the same race and jumping the same hurdles, so let's just not trip each other up.
yeah,
That's
and
the
it's
biggest thing.
yeah, but also it's okay to take care of yourself, and it's okay to not feel okay as well, right? If one thing that Susan, the coach at Meta, taught me as well is like if you zoom out and think like okay, I'm feeling sad right now. Like is it appropriate in size or in response to why I'm feeling sad? If that's true, all right, it's okay to feel sad. But if it gets out of hand and I feel more sad than is appropriate for whatever I'm sad about, maybe I should, take action, do something else. And that doesn't mean like put it in a jar and lock it away. But if you, like you said, like the muse comes in different moments, and if you, go out for a hike or whatever, things will click. And that's also taking care of yourself.
I guess the biggest thing that I'm venting a little bit, but, it's like it's my
Oh,
podcast, so
it's
fuck all
totally
you
fine.
hosts.
Yeah.
No, I mean it like we're talking about the muse, that's where we started this whole conversation, we might as well finish it there.
Sure.
To me, I don't know what other people really go through. I have definitely met people in my life, you included, many, who, like, appear to have much more difficult challenges just to get to base level in life. And then I've met people who seem to have it so easy. Like, it's
Yeah.
like, oh my, like, how do you even respect yourself knowing that other people suffer while you just have a silver spoon in your mouth?
Yeah.
And as I've grown older and met more people and really talked to them, I've realized that, the people that I used to think of as like rich and spoiled, usually their life sucks worse than mine did. Like, it's like,
Yeah. Yeah.
for
Just
me, it's
differently.
like, like I grew up around like a violent household, or, there were whatever drugs around or whatever the fuck, it doesn't matter. And then I talk to them and it's like when I was a 11-year-old in like middle school and I'm talking to the same person, I'd be like, yeah, but your parents are rich and you get to do whatever the fuck you want and you get a car when you
Yeah.
turn 16 and all this kind of shit. And then I look at that now and I talk to the same person now and it's like their struggle's just as valid as mine is,
Yeah, yeah. It
if
didn't
not
prepare them for
worse.
life. Yeah. It didn't prepare them for life. And,
So
shit, I kinda lost my train of thought. But yeah, yeah, I hear you. Oh, yeah, I realized, like, so what you said kind of resonates with something I realized only recently is, like, there's this Dutch saying, like, everybody has their own, like, what's it called? Like a flask of water. Like you have a restaurant, you fill your glasses with it. A pitcher. Everybody has their own pitcher, and sometimes your pitcher is full and it overflows. And but that's okay because then it's not overly full again, and you can manage your pitcher again. But sometimes it overflows. Sometimes it's pretty much empty, so you can take it on the chin and keep going. Sometimes it's pretty full, and the slightest thing can cause it to spill. But only recently I realized like not everybody has the same size pitcher. Some people have tiny pitchers, so everything is a lot to them. Some people have like these crazy tall pitchers where they, keep taking it on the chin and then just plow on. And you don't get to choose your size of pitcher. I think you can kind of stretch it like your comfort zone. If you do hard stuff, common stuff becomes easier in comparison. But for example, and this is, I don't want to do like a negative shout out, but somewhat like I do mentoring on the side in online presence and portfolio reviews and upskilling as well in material art. And there was this person who took 3 ways off to work on their portfolio, and I put in, I think, 2 evenings, valuable hours, time I could have spent with my wife, but also could have done freelancing for good money. But I took that out of my own agenda because I wanted to feedback. I wanted to receive something, good feedback on the process, and give that person a good start onto where to improve portfolio, LinkedIn, stuff like that, to make it easier to break into the games industry in a new career. Um, and for 3 weeks, nothing happened. Also, not a thank you or whatever. And it turns out, yeah, the idea of having to change stuff and do stuff really burned them out. Um, and that's when I realized, it's I can be offended. I can be judgy about this, but how I experience things and how that person experienced things are so vastly different that it's probably incomparable. And for them, this might be a bad thing going on. If you have a tiny pitcher, it's constantly full. I just have a different size pitcher.
one of the most valuable things I think that has only come to me through age and like time has
Yeah.
been understanding in many ways similar to what you just said, that it is foolish to assume other people experience reality the same way that you do. Like there are things that we can all agree upon, like sight, smell, maybe,
Hmm.
if that.
Yeah.
And then there are things that it's just like I'm comparing my subjective experience of life to yours
Yeah.
and expecting you to come to the same conclusions as me with your experience is like that's so immature to think.
But it's
Um,
also it's also very bad to beat yourself up over it
no,
because you're human. N- I judge. I I get jealous. I get angry. I sometimes have a short fuse. I gossip. I do all the stuff that everybody else does, but I do try to be aware of it and try to on average be more positive than negative and add more than I detract. My USB might be super trippy right now. Are you
it
hearing weird
doesn't.
stuff? Ah,
It
my
doesn't.
keyboard
You're
keeps
good.
crapping out.
We're good.
But yeah. So it's okay. Like if you see yourself as a work in progress instead of a final product, it's okay to polish. It's okay if something doesn't work. You'll just patch it out later. You're going. It's ongoing.
I think that the main thing in life that changed my whole perspective on that matter, like, because I used to put so much pressure on myself to be perfect. And I mean, like, I wanted to be the best at everything, no matter
It's a
what I did.
military way as well. So
Yeah.
it's a
Uh,
burden in that respect.
I think that it's not just the military, it's what led me to be in the military. It was like, I
Yeah.
want to be the best of the best. I want to prove for whatever reason to my dad, to my mom, to
To
whoever the fuck,
yourself. Yeah.
yeah, that I'm going to be the best at everything that I do. And then I was awoken to the harsh reality that's like, I'm not fucking even close to the best.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You know, like you get put next to like the best of the best in a classroom and
Yeah.
you realize like I ain't shit in that regard. It doesn't mean I'm not shit, period, but it means like there are other people who are a lot better at certain things than I am.
Yeah.
And growing the respect for that. But I guess the main takeaway from all of that for me was until I met someone who just like cared about me for who I am, like they liked me as I was and were like, there are things we can improve upon, but like that doesn't mean that I don't care about you.
Yeah, yeah,
Like
yeah.
I accept you the way that you are. I never really felt that. Maybe I had that. Maybe my mother gave me that. Maybe whatever, my parents, but I never accepted that way of thinking until it
Yeah.
happened to me. And
Yeah, yeah.
that changed my whole life. It like completely, totally reinvented my
Yeah,
way of thinking about like, who am I? Like,
it's okay to
why
be
do I
you.
expect myself to be perfect when I love someone who I don't expect to be perfect?
Yeah, it's also true. Yeah, yeah, that's a good insight. Um, I wanna share something funny, which it made my life a lot easier, but it's also, probably the way of laziness. Um, like, have you heard of the Pareto principle? Pareto
Parental.
principle?
No.
Pareto. I'm not sure how to pronounce it, but that was kind of fun. But so the idea is like you have a task at hand, and like 80% of the task will take you 20% of the time, but the last 20% of the task will most often take you 80% of the remaining time. So a lot of the effort goes into the final bits. And I realized this when making materials. At some point, I started tweaking instead of improving, but I started tweaking, but it's not there yet. I need to tweak more. But at some point, and it's also tying into imposter syndrome, which we can do another podcast about. But at some point, I realized, like, hey, if I get an 8 out of 10 on my grade card at school, I'm pretty happy. That's solid. So if I can get to 80% in 20% of the time, I'm freaking darn efficient. I just go and ask for feedback, or if it's work related, or just accept, 80, good. It doesn't need to be perfect. Good is enough. Saves me a lot of time, saves me mental capacity, saves me emotional capacity for stuff that I care about. And yeah, it's lazy. And sure, I still try and do, a stuff sometimes whenever I need to. But most often, 80% is pretty good already. And yeah, it allows me to speed run to my target, get some feedback in, or evaluate, see what needs to be done still, and then either do it or it's already good to go. And that gave me a lot of like mental breathing room, but also win back a lot of time, win back efficiency, and yeah, if people think you're doing a good job, it's okay for you to think you're doing a decent job as well.
We'll get there.
Yeah, 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 and it's a journey. It's a journey. It would be weird if you got there right now. If you done everything, seen everything, experienced everything, you might just want to check out then. But there's so much stuff to see and do.
I just want to thank you for being one of the kindest, nicest people I've met in my whole life. You're literally like your name is friend. Uh,
Yeah, true, true.
you know,
I
um,
appreciate it.
I don't take that stuff lightly. I think that names mean a lot. Like it's not a coincidence that my girl's name is Faith. Like it's just
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
it's too on the nose to ignore. I'm just saying
yeah. I
sometimes.
I love that. Like, I remember you were looking for faith, and then at some point you have faith. It's
Well, yeah. Hopefully, hopefully that doesn't come back to bite me later. But I'm pretty confident
could
in where
be.
I'm pretty confident where
Um,
I'm at right now. But I really wanted to drive home like that. You've been so cool, so fucking nice, so understanding, so like a mentor, a friend, someone who would literally like pick me up and drive me all the way across the country to go somewhere else, like if I showed up for Christmas.
Yeah, that was
I
fun, that was
I
fun.
love you, man. Like I have so much love for you.
Likewise, yeah, and it works both ways. Like you open up perspectives that I wasn't aware I could have, right?
Yeah.
And showing me the path of non-duality, pretty much. It's just one of the examples I have. Yeah, you do you. You're doing fine, and I appreciate all that you're doing. And it'll. I'm really looking forward to not just see this podcast out there, but listen to episodes in the car. Um, and it'll be just like catching up, and I also love these conversations with you. Um, so yeah, let's keep kicking it, and yeah, I'm looking forward to see you around as well. Might be a while until I get to stateside again, um, but who knows? I'll definitely chime in.
Well, let's do it again for no matter what context it happens to be in. Let's make sure we just do this again.
For sure, sure.
I'm gonna record like 10 or 12 episodes between now and when I'm like, all right, now it's time to edit and put it all out. But
Yeah, sounds good. Yeah,
maybe
no
the second
rush.
session, we'll bring back like the best of the best, and then we'll mix in some new people. It'll be fun.
Cool. Yeah, yeah, I'm looking forward to who else you'll get in there. I
Let's get
like that
you, me,
it's
and
not
Johan all at the same time. That would be great.
like yeah,
Yeah.
that'll be fun. He's up for it. I know. It's gonna be fun.
Well, go to bed. I love you.
Yeah, likewise. See ya.
Thank you so much to Kai for joining us here on the show. It's absolutely a pleasure always to get to talk to him. If you're interested, he and I are actually starting a little mentoring coaching company called Icebreaker, and we're taking on clients. So if you're interested in getting into the games industry, you can reach out to us. We'll have more news on that as we form it with the website and everything. So I'll keep you posted. And I want to say thank you to all of our wonderful supporters. So currently on Patreon, we have Shannon, Ant, Michael, Fred, Brad, Dots. And if you would like your name mentioned in that list, all you got to do is sign up and hit something higher than that free tier. We're going to be slowly but surely kind of bottlenecking into, only supporters get the perks. But right now, I'm trying to let everybody get back in the game. I know that we've been on hiatus for such a long time, so I got to be patient. And yep, that's about it for that. Head over to inthekeep.com for all ways to support. Check out our stuff. Check out our games. Call us a Ragnar, Stellar Valkyrie. Wishlist them on Steam. Definitely show your love to Kai. I'll have his links in the show notes. And thank you to John of the Shred for supplying this awesome, awesome theme song. I love it. And I hope you love it too. Much love. It's been so long since I've said this, but I love you. God loves you. Stay in the keep.